Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto hides his bloodline Sasuke bashing. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by Recoiled and link in the description and support writer. Let's start the video. But that said, I don't own Naruto. Enjoy. You've been out here a while now. Naruto sat under the tree, staring at the graves in front of him. Even buried halfway in the ground as a headstone, Zabuza's sword came up to about his standing height. Kakashi-sensei had inscribed it with a kunai in far more graceful writing than Naruto thought possible. Then again, he was a ninja. It read Zabuza Mamachi fell as a true shinobi. Any who read it might think the man fell in a mission or against some skilled foe. The reality was a more fitting end for the man, Naruto thought. Kakashi told him about the blade's regenerative properties when introduced to blood. If anyone stole the blade and used it, which was very likely in the ninja world, the inscription would likely disappear. Still, Naruto thought it a good gesture. They've had me thinking for a while now, Naruto replied. Kakashi, leaning on the other side of the tree, his book open and a hand in his pocket, raised his gaze over his shoulder. Anything your sensei should be concerned about? Kakashi said. Naruto shrugged. Kakashi walked around the tree, kneeling beside him, laying a reverent hand on the freshly packed mound of dirt. This is your first time dealing with a death, even if it was an enemy's rather than an ally's. Kakashi said. Naruto was quiet for a moment. Yeah, Haku the hunter nin that jumped in front of your jutsu. I met him before. When I was asleep after doing the tree climbing exercise. He didn't kill you? Kakashi said. No. Didn't know who he was at the time. He could have too. Even when he woke me up. You made friends with him. Yeah, a little bit. I guess you could say that I didn't know who he was. Would have probably attacked him and gotten myself killed if I did, but he didn't bring it up, just talked to me about protecting what's important. Even if it means he gestured to the grave in front of him. That. Naruto was silent, a mournful expression on his face that he wished would go away. Seeing both of them die like that, Naruto said. Dealing with death for the first time, it's always hard. Sometimes a shinobi's first encounter with it is a friend, sometimes it's a foe. You had the unique fate to have both. What was your first? Naruto asked and then winced. Sorry, that's probably personal, isn't it? I'm your sensei. It's my job to help with these things. Kakashi said with a smile. My first was an Iwa ninja. Didn't know his name, just an enemy. Caught him with a kunai to the back of the head. I remember being surprised when he fell down. Training dummies never fell, and that's all I'd ever thrown at. Naruto nodded. I remember in the academy they tell you to be prepared when you first see death. But it's one of those things you can't really prepare for, is it? Naruto asked. Kakashi shook his head. It hits everyone. Kakashi said. They sat together for a bit, Naruto watching Zabuza's grave, Kakashi doing the same. It was one of the few times Naruto had seen him idle and not have his book out. Are you worried about how it's affecting you? Kakashi asked. Naruto nodded. Don't be. I'd be scared if it wasn't. It's good that it's affecting you, no matter what other ninja may say. In the moment, when you're in the midst of life and death, that's the time to block it out. But this is the time to let yourself feel what you feel. A shinobi must never show their tears. Naruto said, almost as a question. Kakashi could hear his voice breaking. I'll turn away. Kakashi said, not a drop of mockery in his voice. Nothing but understanding. Naruto's face scrunched up as he nodded, his eyes already watering, and as Kakashi turned, he heard his student let out a string of choked sobs. Kakashi let him get it all out, listening to his student weep. They sat together for a while, Naruto just crying, Kakashi just being there for him. Eventually, he wiped his eyes, sniffing. Is it harder than this? When you're the one doing it? I don't know by experience, Kakashi said, turning back and resting a hand on Naruto's shoulder. My first encounter with death was also my first kill. But I've heard from others that it helps prepare for your first a lot. Naruto nodded. He never had that help. Naruto pointed to Haku's grave. He hated killing. That's why he never went for the kill. With you and Sasuke? Kakashi asked. Naruto nodded. I just got really lucky. Him being my first enemy, didn't I? If it was anyone else. I think so, Naruto. Kakashi-sensei, I need a lot of help, Naruto said. Kakashi could hear the desperation in his voice. The disillusionment with his own abilities. On the bridge me and Sasuke couldn't touch him. Not once. I was pinned down and I couldn't move, and Sasuke, even when he got his Sharingan, he could hardly defend me and himself at the same time. If he hadn't seen you about to kill Zabuza and disengaged. You've seen people who are stronger than you before. But this is the first time you've seen, wasn't it? Yeah, the villagers, when they raided Gato's hideout. They found Haku's belongings. Naruto opened the backpack slumped next to him by the tree and removed 3 scrolls, flashing them up at his sensei. They gave them to me as a gift, he had at least a dozen. I've only glanced at them, but the amount he knew more than me, the number of ways he could have killed me, that all went over my head that I didn't even think about defending. I'm glad you're learning this lesson now, Naruto. Kakashi said, don't think that's a knock on your bullheadedness either. Nobody learns this until they experience it. And given how dangerous our profession is, not a lot of ninja get the chance to realize the reality of how lethal, how dangerous being a shinobi is until their last moments. In fact, you're the first on Team 7 to have learned it. Sasuke. He knows grief. He knows his life getting flipped on its head in a single day. But he only saw the aftermath of Itachi's work. Not the process. And because of that, I could even say he knows helplessness, but not desperation. He gets stronger to avenge. Not to survive. I need to get better, Naruto said. I've been thinking about it for the last week now, you know. If I want to survive in a world like this, can you help me? Naruto asked. Of course, Naruto, and Naruto could hear a difference in his voice now. Every time Naruto screamed for a cool new jutsu, every time he demanded to be taught something that would make him Hokage, Naruto could hear patience in his sensei's voice. Now, all he heard was understanding, acknowledgement. He wasn't a kid in Kakashi's eyes. He was a fellow shinobi trying to survive, just like him. Let me start with a basic rundown of your skills, a realistic one, not bravado. Naruto nodded. Physically, you're okay for where you're at in your career, but not great. Your speed and strength are both low to mid-genin. Your accuracy is similar. Skill-wise, you need a lot of refinement. Your hand-to-hand combat is academy level. You make up for it with Kage Bunshin, but imagine how good they would be if your hand-to-hand was at the level of Sasuke. Your chakra control is also high academy level, but only because of the tree walking exercise. Before that, it was much worse. That's the area that needs the most refinement. I don't know your skills in dispelling Jinjutsu, as I've never put you in one, but I take it you don't know any. Naruto nodded, right, so that needs work as well. I don't want you thinking that you don't have strengths though, Naruto. You have a great asset in terms of chakra. Your pool is bigger than a lot of jonin I know. The problem is you can't take advantage of that. As it stands, your shadow clones run you out of chakra at about the same rate that a genin with regular reserves would using D and C rank techniques. I'm not saying don't use them, but I am saying if you had those D and C rank techniques, your ability to spam them instead would make you a monster for anyone in your age range. And to get those D and C rank techniques down, Naruto said, you need chakra control. Kakashi finished. Far more than you have now. It's why the first thing I've taught you is tree walking, other than the teamwork drills I've had you guys doing so you can be somewhat effective in the field. But back on your Kage Bunshin, it's your primary weapon, but because your skills are lacking in all the other areas, it's not nearly as effective as it could be. Your greater strengths come in two forms. The first is deception and surprise. You took my lesson of underneath very well, Naruto. The henge feint with a windmill shuriken you used against Zabuza was something I would use in a battle if I thought of it. That's a great skill. Too many ninja rely on straightforward fighting. Those are the ones that get taken down by people like you. You even showed it in the bell test when you used the charging clones as a diversion to sneak up on me. That brings me to the second strength, your stealth. You snuck up on me in the bell test. My surprise then wasn't feigned. I'll admit I wasn't taking you seriously, and if I had, I'd likely have seen you coming. But that doesn't detract from your feat. That being said, I've only seen you employ stealth at one time, so I'll ask, do you think your stealth is good? Naruto took a moment to realize that the urge to shout in the affirmative that he would have felt a week ago was missing. Instead, he seriously thought about his answer. Yeah. I'd say it's probably better than a lot of others in my age. When I was pranking, I got a lot of experience running and hiding from Chunin. They always caught me at first, when I was 6 or 7, but it got a lot easier as time went on. Did you wear your orange then? Bought the jacket when I was 10. Before that, I wore a white t-shirt most of the time. So it's been about 2 years of pranking with this on. Both are noticeable colors, especially at night. I'd recommend switching to a darker color when we get home. You'd find stealth would come even easier. Right, I've always wanted to stand out. I guess that's the opposite of what a ninja should strive for. Kakashi nodded. Do you think we could come up with a training regiment? Of course. Now that we've identified your needs, we can build them in a way that complements your strengths. You talked about C and D rank techniques. Do you think you could teach me one, sensei? I'm not asking for something powerful or flashy like I always ask for. I want something smart. Something that fits my skills. Something I can master and build on. Kakashi smiled at him. He didn't tell his student how long he'd been waiting to hear that. Tell you what, Naruto. You prove to me you're serious by doing those boring chakra control exercises, and I'll teach you a jutsu. How about that? Naruto nodded. Most of my training is probably gonna be going towards that right now, anyway. Thanks, Kakashi-sensei. Kakashi ruffled his hair. Of course. Since I can't teach you one yet, though, allow me to teach you something that will make you a better shinobi than any jutsu. Naruto lifted his head. What we're gonna do is analysis of your fight with Haku. Everyone grows under the experience of a real fight, but you can maximize that even more. I have every encounter, every fight I've been a part of logged and scrolled at home, with my own commentary on what went right and wrong, and the commentary of some of my peers, so I can have more than one set of eyes on the situation. I saw the beginning of your fight, but not all, so let's go through the details, shall we? And Naruto did, recounting how he'd rushed in to help Sasuke, how they'd both been taken apart by Haku, how Sasuke took charge and was the only one to make progress on getting Haku's timing and tagging him with a fireball jutsu, how Naruto got blitzed and paralyzed, how Sasuke was just barely able to hold off the Senbon needles and defend him at the same time, and how, just as Sasuke looked to be running out of chakra, Haku cancelled the jutsu and took Kakashi's lightning blade in place of Zabuza. Alright. And that's all the details you remember? Naruto nodded. Okay. Let's go chronologically. Naruto took out a spare scroll and some ink and a brush, waiting for his sensei's breakdown. First, your strategic thinking needs a lot of work. At the beginning of the fight, I noticed that you'd made an entrance when you finally got to the bridge. This takes away a surprise element you could have used. When the enemy doesn't know where you are, that's an advantage, and giving that away without getting something in return is the same as tossing your kunai pouch away at the start of a fight. There's no reason, and you just take away a potential tool you could have used. Same thing when you ran inside the ice mirrors. You coiled yourself and allowed the enemy to trap you. That gave away your potential mobility and the ability to attack from multiple angles alongside Sasuke. It only gave the advantage to the enemy. When you got in the mirrors, your immediate focus should shift to getting out, not attacking the enemy. You were fighting on his ground, with his advantages. We tried later, Naruto said, after we realized that fighting wasn't an option. Sasuke tried a lot of things, and I followed his orders, but it didn't work. What could I have done differently? Naruto asked. Kakashi smiled. Let me hear your ideas. This is part of the analyzing process, after all. Naruto thought for a moment. When I tried to get out, I just tried to run with no plan. I could have used Kage Bunshin and had them all run in different directions, maybe even had some henges Sasuke so he could try and get out too, or Naruto stopped, then face-palmed. I could have just substituted with something outside the mirrors. Don't knock yourself too much on that one, Kakashi said. Part of what makes Haku's ice mirrors possible is Zabuza's hit-and-miss technique. Your surroundings were obscured, so without a clear line of sight on a substitutable object, the ability to substitute becomes impossible, but your first points were a good plan. So, in the moment, how do I think strategically like that? It comes with practice, lots of it, but the basics of strategy are to take into account your advantages and your disadvantages, then come up with a plan. Let's take your battle, for example. What were your advantages and disadvantages at the start? Well, when I first got there, like you said, I had the element of surprise. Sneaking up on Zabuza was probably not an option, but Haku might have been manageable. Naruto took a moment to swallow his pride, had a stronger teammate to fight alongside with. One with more destructive jutsu. I could have tried to sneak up on Haku with a clone and maybe get him in a hold so Sasuke could finish him with the fireball. Or try to wait for a moment of vulnerability when he was fighting Sasuke. It's a good plan. Sasuke was the most likely to take Haku down. Supplementing him should be your focus, Naruto nodded. He didn't like hearing it, but this wasn't about pride. This was about what let you live in a situation. Whether he had his feelings hurt wasn't even part of the equation with something that important. Yeah. Haku was faster, stronger, and had the bigger repertoire than me. Sasuke was a closer match. The only way we could win in a 2-on-1 is if I had supplemented him as best I could. Good. Admitting that already shows your head is where it should be, Naruto. Confidence builds a ninja, but pride slays him. I want you to continue going through each part of the fight yourself, reflecting, thinking what you could have done better. Write it down and bring it to me when you're done. You could do the same with Mizuki as well. Kakashi stood. When we get back to the village, I have some scrolls that could help you. I'll swing by your place. Study them, and Haku's scrolls. They'll help you quite a bit. Naruto nodded. Already, his head was filled with a desire to get better, to master himself. He wanted to strategize more. He wanted to practice tree climbing more. He wanted to get better. No, he needed to. He couldn't afford to let down his village, his teammates, or himself. The bell rang above Naruto's head as he walked into the equipment shop. Shelves and shelves of equipment, tools, pouches, vests, clothes, apparel, and all kinds of things met him. Before, Naruto would have wanted to buy them all, like a kid in a candy shop. Now, he felt a bit lost, not knowing exactly what he needed, what the small differences of this kunai pouch versus that kunai pouch meant on the battlefield. After getting back from the wave, Team 7 had reported to the Hokage and subsequently had their mission bumped from a C rank to an A rank. When Naruto saw 2 more zeros on his paycheck than he would have gotten with a C ranked, he knew he wanted to drop by. He set aside a third of it for this month's rent and groceries, but that still meant quite a bit left for him. He needed to expand his options in a fight. Like Kakashi-sensei had told him, he only had Kage Bunshin, which were, individually, about as dangerous as academy students. If he met someone significantly faster or with no qualms about fighting multiple foes or who could use widespread jutsu to dispel them or a multitude of others who could easily counter his Kage Bunshin, then he was out of luck. Adding on more things he could do, better choices he could make in a fight, would only help him. Question was, what exactly should he add? Better start with what I know I need, Naruto thought. New clothes and some restocking on kunai and shuriken. Naruto grabbed a handbasket and walked past the first aisle. Since the academy went all year round and graduation occurred at the same time as enrollment, that meant new students starting a new semester, and fresh genin that could now buy things normally restricted without a ninja ID all flooded stores at the same time. This led to what many chunin and jonin lovingly dubbed the Academy Rush, where all the equipment in stores was replaced with inventory targeted more towards children. The first aisle held the remnants of the Academy Rush from last month. Clear, plastic packs emblazoned with cool and deadly cartoons of ninja dotted the aisle. Phrases like includes 2 Fuma Shuriken and mystery scroll inside were blasted across their covers. Outfits more designed for how deadly they looked than how practical they were joined these packs to make what looked like a toy aisle with a dash of lethality mixed in. Naruto winced at the fact that packs like this were where he'd gotten his own Fuma Shuriken, which he ended up losing to Zabuza. The upside to Academy Rush, however, came in the aftermath. As most older ninja avoided the Academy Rush like the plague, that led to a kind of post-rush about a month after, where they all came back in to replenish. That meant more quality equipment and the option of buying singles instead of packs. And sure enough, in the next aisle were clothes, all practical, all colored black, dark blue, and dark green, a pair of chunin idly browsing the selection. Naruto didn't need anything fancy. He saw some specialized articles, such as one titled Swordsman's Shirt on its tag, with one long sleeve and one short sleeve. He didn't know the function of these, and though part of him thought cool, the other part of him countered practical. Instead, he picked out 3 pairs of black cargo pants, 3 long-sleeved black t-shirts, and 3 sleeveless black t-shirts. He didn't want to go all out and buy a new wardrobe, especially since he'd be growing more soon. Naruto nearly passed the next aisle before going back. In here were apparel accessories, things like bandages, pouches, and the like. Naruto glanced up and down the aisles. What here would he need? Analyze. Naruto told himself, what could each thing add to your arsenal? Naruto started simple. 3 rolls of bandages. He'd seen other ninja wrap the end of their pant legs with them to prevent snagging and shore up their ankles for kicks. A 3rd roll would be good for medical purposes. He spotted a few pairs of sunglasses. They claimed they were flash resistant on their tags. He left these alone. Flash tags were rarer than things like explosive tags. The sleeveless mesh undershirt caught his eye. Did he need this? He didn't have much defense against ranged attacks, and Haku Senbon were still lingering in his mind. He decided one couldn't hurt. They weren't awfully expensive after all, just the price of about 3 t-shirts. He noticed the headwear next. Bandanas, hoods, and head wrappings were all lined on the wall. Naruto hummed at these. If he was going for muted colors now, his hair was a problem, especially if it contrasted with his gear. He decided to leave them for now, and if he still had money left over, he'd revisit them. There were also fresh headband plates, the words request bands, a counter on a small sign beside them. His had actually been dented from when Zabuza stomped on it when he had Kakashi-sensei in the water prison. Well, he could get it undented by an armorer, and he intended to do exactly that for his dented one. He actually wanted a new one as well that he could wear on mission. The one Iruka gave to him was special, and he didn't want to chance it getting damaged like it already had. He wandered into the next aisle, where a hanging sign read concealables. Scrolls upon scrolls of sealed shuriken, kunai, and the like were stocked here. Naruto picked up a 20 count of shuriken and a 40 count of kunai to replenish what he'd lost in the wave. He hadn't actually even used 40 kunai, just 11, but Naruto had done some thinking. The kunai beat a punch in almost every scenario. Why hit someone a million times if you could hit them once or twice, and they were done? Added to that, kunai were thin enough that seals could be woven around them. Kunai work was on the list of things he'd put on his training regiment for those reasons. The old him that imagined himself dragging out fights with graceful taijutsu for the sake of glory wouldn't cut it. He'd finish things as quick as possible. He paused at the senbon. Could he use these? The waves certainly left their impression on him for how they were used. Naruto took a moment to think. These weren't as heavy as regular throwing weapons, which meant their effectiveness wasn't great unless you had pinpoint accuracy that could target eyes, ears, nerve clusters, and the like. He passed on them. As much as he might want to use them, he needed to make effective use of his training time when he could, and the learning curve for these was too steep. The next aisle read Unconcealables. The title was a slight misnomer, anything could be concealed in a scroll, but it rather referred to when you wanted your weapons unsealed and on person, since taking something out of a scroll often gave your opponent an extra second. All of these could still go in a scroll, however, as long as you weren't planning to need them immediately. And as the aisle's title implied, here were the bigger weapons, katanas, staffs, Fuma shuriken, and the like. Naruto considered a collapsible Fuma shuriken. It had certainly helped in the fight against Zabuza. He picked up 2 and set them in the basket. The next aisle caught his eye. Toxins and antidotes. He definitely wanted one of these, but the problem was that he knew nothing about poisons or venoms. Words like butane cardiotoxin, brown recluse necrosis and biv of mollusk paralytic went right over his head. He glanced up and down the shelves before spotting a jonin at the end of the aisle. He felt a tinge of embarrassment, but if it was his pride or his life, he'd pick his life every day. "Excuse me?" Naruto approached. The older man glanced up. He had a standard flak jacket and a small scar through his goatee where hair didn't grow. The man looked at Naruto, then his orange clothes, then his basket. Naruto hoped the items he was getting demonstrated his seriousness. The man smiled. "What's up, kid?" he said, voice deep but friendly. "I don't know much about toxins, but I've been needing to pick some up. Could you help me?" The man placed a bottle he was holding back on the shelf. "Sure thing. What's your specialization?" The question caught Naruto off guard, but since he'd been thinking about his abilities for the past week and a half now, the answer came to him quicker and likely more accurately to the truth than it would have beforehand. Stealth and deception, but I'm gonna be moving into close to mid-range ninjutsu specialist here soon. I hope to kinda combine the two." The man nodded. Apparently this was a good answer. "I like it," he said. "If you're just getting started on poisons, then don't worry too much about getting into specific effects. I'd really only recommend a lethal and a paralyzer. It'll cover most of the stuff you want to do on missions. You'll also need 2 type of each, a domestic grown and a foreign grown." "Why's that?" "Ninja that try to develop resistances to poison do so with domestic flora and fauna first. That means poisons and venoms domestic to high no kuni don't work as well in high no kuni. So you tend to want to use domestic poisons when abroad and foreign poisons when in country." "That makes sense," Naruto said, and then started a bit as he, thankfully, caught the 400ml bottle the man had just tossed to him. "That's a batracha toxin. It's a neurocardiotoxin harvested from golden dart frogs here in Fire Country." The man seemed to catch Naruto's blank stare at the words. "Those are fancy words for a poison that stops your muscles and heart. Get it in their bloodstream, and they got about a minute, even less the closer you get to their heart or a major artery." He also picked out a small vial next to the bottles of frog poison and handed it to Naruto. "Always carry an antidote as well. Keep it in a seal if you need, but you never know when you might nick someone you don't want to, yourself included." He plucked another bottle from a shelf and handed it to Naruto, who gently placed it in his basket. "Here's a good foreign lethal. That's an asphyxiate from the monitor lizards in Suna. Means it stops your breathing. Suna's poisons are the cheapest of the imports on market right now, cause of our alliance with them. They also have some of the best toxins in the world, which is a bonus." The man picked up 2 more non-lethal neurotoxins Naruto could use for paralyzing and a single vial of antidote for each. Although, he made sure to stress that any poison was lethal given the right dosage. These simply wouldn't be lethal with a standard coating on a weapon. As the man slipped around the aisle and told him to wait, Naruto held up one of the bottles, swishing its contents around in the light. He thought they'd be purple or green. Almost all the poisons and venoms here were just clear, some rare ones a clearish yellow. The man came back around with a few pouches of some kind. "What's your preferred throwing weapon?" he asked. Naruto blinked. What's the best one for using poisons? I'm kinda fresh, so I can start to train in any of them." "Senbon, by far." Naruto nodded. Though he didn't want to pick them up originally, he supposed the damage dealing wasn't much a factor if you were using poison, and given how hard they were to see and how light they probably were the best delivery method for any toxin. "And I guess Senbon." The man knelt down by Naruto and fastened some kind of cloth carrier with 6 small holes on the top around his right thigh. "Oh, guess I shouldn't presume. You're right-handed?" Naruto nodded. "Alright. This is a wet sheath. It'll keep your senbon coated and ready to use." The man pulled a senbon from a pouch and stuck it in one of the small holes at the top. "They go in here." He removed it and then loosed the covering on the side of the pouch, revealing 6 small cloth tubes fastened to small plastic bulbs at the bottom, and you fill the poisons in here. They can hold about 4 or 5 coatings worth each. Make sure to wash out the carriers if you put something else in them. Naruto nodded, unfastening the pouch and putting it in his basket. "Thanks a bunch. I really needed the help." The man smiled. "No worries, kid. Best of luck." Naruto ended up picking out a few more items, namely being a 40 count of senbon to pair with his poisons, black sandals, since his current navy ones wouldn't match his new outfits, a flat knife that he could keep in the bandages around his ankles, a pack of explosive notes, and a small sealing scroll to keep traveling gear and combat equipment that he didn't want encumbering his person. He made a mental note to seal his Fuma shuriken and antidotes close to the top if he needed them immediately. Finally, he picked out 2 small slips of paper that apparently told you your elemental affinity. Though he needed to work on chakra control first, it wouldn't hurt to know it all. By the time he was at the cash register, he remembered the headwear in the clothing aisle, but decided it was too much of a hassle to go back and pick up, especially since there were 3 others behind him already waiting. "ID please," the cashier said. Naruto plucked it from his wallet, sliding it across counter. She picked it up and examined it before sliding it back to him. "Quite the selection of items you choose. Did you miss our sales a couple weeks ago? We still have some bundles you might save money on if you're interested." "I'm good, thanks," Naruto said, helping take out each item as the woman punched their prices into her calculator. "Would you like to keep the blue from your other headband?" she said as she lifted up the new forehead protector, "or do you want a different color?" "Might as well fit the theme and say black," Naruto replied. "Could you remove your headband?" she asked politely. Naruto complied as she wrapped a length of black cloth around his forehead, cut it with a pair of scissors, and set it on the counter. She flipped over the protector to its blank side and took out a brush. "What's your ID number?" 012607 Naruto counted off as she brushed them in, set the cloth on top the headband, took out a small handheld puncher, and punched the cloth in at each corner, each punch giving a nice chink. She handed it to Naruto, who tied it around his head and slipped Iruka's headband in his pocket. "Your total is gonna be 60,205 ryo." That was about 3/4 of his remaining money, which he forked over. The woman sealed the items in a small travel scroll, save one of the papers that Naruto elected to carry, and handed it to him. "Thank you for your business." "Thank you," Naruto said. He slipped the scroll in his pocket, eager to change when he got home, and stepped outside, leaning against the wall as he looked at the square piece of paper in his hand. He smiled. The guide in the store told him that the effect would vary given his elemental nature. He hoped for fire. That was most likely, given where he lived. It would give him some long-range jutsu to add to his repertoire and hopefully add some punch to what his clones could do. He made a single hand seal, focusing his chakra as he closed his eyes and waited, slowly drawing his chakra up to the paper, which moved like molasses through his coils. When the finally made it, he opened his eyes and looked. The paper split in half and then both sides went soggy. He had 2. Wind and water. That was apparently really good. Few people, other than Jonin, had more than one unless they practiced a lot at. Naruto's breath drew in. The 2 soggy pieces in his hand slowly went rigid as the water droplets on them started to sheen over. Frost coated them both as a twirl of cold fog, like breath on a cold day, twirled up at him. His mind flashed to the bridge, to Haku, to the deadly Kekkei Genkai that she employed against them, and that apparently ran through Naruto's veins as well. It appeared that he also, somehow, carried the curse of the Yuki clan. It appeared he had the Hyoten bloodline. "I don't own Naruto, show me." Naruto slipped the chakra paper out of the pocket of his black cargo pants, holding it up between finger and thumb, and concentrating as he closed his eyes. A few seconds passed before the paper split, both sides turning soggy. Naruto wondered for a moment if his original showing outside the store was just a fluke. Maybe some kind of leftover chakra still on his body from his encounter with Haku leaked onto the paper, if that was possible. But no. The halved slip slowly turned cold, freezing onto his fingers, chilling them. Kakashi-sensei held out a hand as Sasuke and Sakura watched on in surprise. Naruto peeled the papers off and handed them over. His sensei lifted them to the light. Iridescent sparkles glittered off the ice crystals on the paper. He handed them back to Naruto, who didn't quite know what to do with them. He simply let them drop into the stream beneath the bridge they were on. "Well," Kakashi said, "if the Hyoten bloodline were to pop up in anyone with no explanation, I suppose you'd be the most likely candidate in Konoha. And that's not a remark on your unpredictability, either. The Uzumaki clan originally comes from Yuzushiogakure, an island near Mizu no Kumi, which is where the Yuki clan lived. The bloodline purges started just a little before the destruction of Yuzushiogakure. It's not unreasonable to think a Yuki clan member saw the writing on the wall and sought refuge there with one of your ancestors, if your parents were actually Uzumakis, that is, which seems likely given your vitality." "Still," Sensei Sakura said, "don't you think it a little coincidental that we just fought someone with the Hyoten Kekkei Genkai and now Naruto suddenly has it? You don't think he, I don't know, somehow stole it from that hunter nin, do you? No such ability or jutsu exists that could steal or copy a Kekkei Genkai, and we have no way of knowing whether he had the bloodline beforehand since he never tested his chakra nature. Besides, Sasuke woke his Sharingan on the bridge and Naruto doesn't have that. You have the Sharingan, despite not being an Uchiha. Sakura said. I got mine through an eye transplant. Regardless, Dijutsu are different. When it comes to nature transformations, there's only one possible way to obtain it, and that's through a DNA splicing surgery, followed by a long period of incubation. The procedure has nearly a 99% death rate. To even do it, you'd need a large DNA sample from a Yuki clan member, which isn't exactly easy to find. I haven't ever had a surgery before, Naruto said, or woken up on a surgery table with unexplained stitches. Still, though, Sakura said. I don't really see an issue. Sasuke finally spoke up. Sakura glanced over to him. Another bloodline will only help us become more efficient in the field and benefit us as a team. You saw the hunter nin use Hyoten, Sakura. This is only good for us. Naruto was surprised to hear Sasuke standing up for him. Besides, when it comes to Naruto, he needs all the help he can get. Ah. There it was. So what now then? Sakura asked. Are you gonna teach Naruto how to use Hyoten, Kakashi-sensei? For now, it's business as usual. I can't teach Naruto how to use Hyoten, as I can't use it myself. Nobody in Konoha can, as far as I know, which means Naruto here will have to employ a bit of self-discovery, unless Haku's scrolls have any insight. Naruto shook his head in response, feeling disappointed. As soon as he got home last night, he'd skimmed over each scroll to see if there was anything on Hyoten, with no luck. Plenty about senbon throwing, stealth, chakra control, anatomy, and so on. But nothing about any of the jutsu he used. Naruto supposed when you knew each by heart and there was no possibility to pass them on to anyone that wasn't a Yuki, then there was no reason to write them down. Right. Well, for now, just don't mess with it, Naruto. I'd rather you have myself or someone else supervising you while you experiment, just in case. Despite Naruto's hesitation at learning of his bloodline, he couldn't deny also feeling excitement at the prospect of using it, excitement that was now turning to disappointment. Now, onto today's itinerary. The Hokage has given us a week-long vacation after our mission, given that you're all genin, and A ranks like that are more meant for jonin. If you have no objections, however, I will be assigning you all some homework. He gave a closed-eye smile as Sakura groaned. Now, he said, it won't be anything too intense, just some things I want you each to practice on. Sakura he fished out a small white scroll painted red on its ends. One of my colleagues was kind enough to loan me this. Do take care of it, as I'll need to give it back by the end of the week. It's the basics on detecting and dispelling jinjutsu. Regardless of what direction you go as a ninja, this will be a good thing to know, but if you do choose to become a jinjutsu specialist, this will serve as your most basic of foundations. Memorize it, and when we get back, I'll give you some experience with actually dispelling. He turned to Naruto, producing another scroll. Naruto, we already talked about your training back in the wave. This will be a good start. He tossed him the scroll. Naruto unraveled it. It was a series of exercises revolving around tree walking that helped chakra control even more and would likely serve him well should he need them in a fight, such as sticking with your hands, rolling across a wall while sticking, hand springing up a wall, backhand springing up a wall, and so on. Sasuke, here's a scroll I wrote myself. It's on Sharingan use. I suggest getting a sparring partner or using spinning wooden dummies to help you with your practice with some of the techniques in there. You'll particularly need a partner if you want to practice casting jinjutsu with a Sharingan. Sasuke gave a rare smile and took it, already starting to read. We'll meet up here again in a week at, let's say 9 in the morning. We'll take a mission and then I'll check your progress on training. From there, we'll continue with teamwork exercises. Sound good? Each of them nodded. Well then, take care. And with that, he poofed into a cloud of smoke and disappeared. Naruto had wanted to ask him about how to improve his diet and had waited until he was done, but it appeared now he wouldn't get the chance. He didn't even know where the elusive Jonin lived. He looked over at his teammates. Sakura was looking at her scroll with trepidation before glancing up to Sasuke, who was already walking down the bridge. Oh, Sasuke. She said, chasing after him. Kakashi-sensei said you'd need a partner for casting jinjutsu, and since I'm learning to dispel them, do you want to? No, he called, not even bothering to look over his shoulder as he did so. Sakura wilted, and Naruto frowned. That was a little harsh. And, even if her intentions were only to get closer to Sasuke, it would help them both get better at a quicker rate if they'd work together. If I knew any jinjutsu, I'd have helped, Sakura. Naruto said maybe we can work together on. Shut it, Naruto. She said, jogging off toward Sasuke. Naruto sighed. Naruto brushed some stray dust off his table as he put the finishing touches on his 2 schedules. One for this week and one for when Team 7's vacation ended. He set his brush down, a bit of ink drooping down the side of the bottle. The sky outside was just turning a morning twilight, which meant there wasn't much natural light drifting through the window, so he had to lift his scroll up off the table to read it well. Mornings would start the same each day. Wake up, shower, and breakfast at 8 to 9. Then a 30-minute jog as he made his way to the training ground for his warm-up. If he made it before the 30 minutes were up, then he'd do laps around the grounds. 9:30 to 11 would be chakra control. He'd spend 30 minutes on regular warm-up, just running up and down the tree, and then 2 hours of the special exercises from Kakashi-sensei's scroll. He'd break for lunch from 11 to 12:30. Another 30 minutes to get back to the training grounds, and then it was sparring practice with clones for an hour. He needed to get better at using kunai in hand-to-hand combat, and since he could literally make training partners, this seemed a good way to practice. He'd likely be pretty tired at that point, so after sparring, he'd practice throwing and accuracy from 2 to 3:30, which wouldn't take up much energy. 30 minutes for senbon, 30 minutes for kunai, 30 minutes for shuriken. From 3:30 to 5, he'd study from Haku's scrolls. He wanted to pick up as much info as he could, and Haku's scrolls were a treasure trove just waiting to be used. From 5 to 6:30, he had dinner, and then, after making it back to the training grounds, from 7 to 9, he had more chakra control. He had the idea earlier of combining tree climbing and sparring. This is where he would try it, but he needed to get good enough first to be able to just walk up the tree or stand if he wanted to spar. As it stood, he still needed the momentum of running to make it up a surface, so until he got good enough, he'd likely just practice regular chakra control in this lot. After this week, his schedule would change. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays were the same, as Team 7 didn't meet on those days, unless Kakashi-sensei specifically scheduled something. On Sundays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, however, his team usually met at 9, did a mission, had lunch, and did another mission. They were usually done at 3 or 4, so Naruto decided on those days he'd practice chakra control until 5 or 6, eat dinner, and then do more chakra control via tree sparring for an hour or 2 after. Hopefully by next week, his chakra control would be good enough to so. Naruto smiled. Back in the wave, Kakashi-sensei had given him pointers on making a schedule, and one aspect of his development as a ninjutsu practice, was absent because of him. Kakashi told him that he already had chakra reserves at around mid-jonin level. However, because the only ninjutsu Naruto knew was Kage Bunshin, that made using it excessively a detriment. The Kage Bunshin took quite a bit of chakra, which made spamming it similar to a reserve exercise used to increase one's chakra pool. Since Naruto only knew Kage Bunshin, this basically meant that every time he had spammed it the last month, he was ever so slowly giving his chakra pool a decent workout, increasing it drip by drip. By the end of the year, he likely would have been at low Kage level, had he only used Kage Bunshin. Normally this wasn't a bad thing, as almost nobody disagreed with having more chakra. Normally. Since Naruto had almost no chakra control, however, this meant increasing his reserves would only set him up for failure. Starting from scratch to develop chakra control with Jonin level reserves was already quite the hell to climb. Doing so with Kage level reserves was a near insurmountable mountain. But, if he developed good control, and then increased his reserves and control at the same rate, then he would be okay. He could still use Kage Bunshin, of course, and he intended to. He simply couldn't pump them out by the dozens every day. Naruto thought on these things as he gathered up Haku's scrolls and the scroll Kakashi-sensei had given to him and stuffed them in his bag. He was looking forward to finally making some progress, finally developing into a ninja this week. Who knows, he might even get Kakashi to teach him that jutsu a bit sooner than he thought. He slipped on his sandals, locked his apartment door on the way out, and jogged off to the training grounds. "Iruka-sensei," Naruto called. The man in question turned, smiling as he spotted Naruto, shirt stained with sweat, jogging over to him. Iruka hadn't changed much in the 6 weeks since Naruto last saw him without a mission's desk between the two. His hair was still in a ponytail, still wore the same flak jacket, still had his big brother smile on his face. He was stood at the doorway to a restaurant, a hand on his hip. "Naruto," Iruka said, cocking an eyebrow. "I'd have thought you'd be with Kakashi today. Not skipping again, are you?" He looked him up and down. "Nice change of clothes by the way." "Thanks. No, we're off this week after our last mission. Got back 4 days ago." "Ah. I was meaning to ask how that went. Care to talk over dinner?" "My treat." Naruto nodded, and they walked into the restaurant, an open grill barbecue, and were seated shortly thereafter. He picked up his menu, scanning the items. "So, I heard the mission went a bit pear-shaped. I figured with Kakashi as your sensei, though, I wouldn't need to be too worried." "Yeah. Our client, Tazuna. He hired us for bodyguard protection while he built a bridge, but neglected to tell us he'd be receiving more resistance than just bandits." "What kind?" Naruto was about to answer, but the waiter appeared. "Oh," Iruka said, "I'll get the koji salmon." "I'll take the same," Naruto said. The waiter scribbled them down, muttered what Naruto assumed was right away, and then departed. "I think they have ramen, are you sure, Naruto?" "Yeah, trying to eat a bit healthier," Naruto said, "but anyway, we ended up encountering some missing ninja. That's some bad luck for your first C rank. Kakashi take care of them?" "Yeah, 2 chunin and a jonin, and a bloodline user the jonin picked up and trained." Me and Sasuke. Sasuke and Iruka interrupted. Naruto grew a playful smile. Right, so me and Sasuke fought the Bloodline user. Picked us apart. Would have taken us down, but he disengaged to take a killing blow for the Jonin at the last second from Kakashi-sensei. It's a mission. They bump it up to a B rank. Naruto nodded as the waiter brought out plates of steaming food. He was skipping on major details to Iruka-sensei, such as the mission actually being an A rank, because he'd been trying to practice hiding his true skill, alongside other deceptions and things that could help him as a ninja. So he treated this encounter like a little game, see if he could hide things from Iruka. Yeah. I think it kinda opened my eyes though. Been doing a lot more training recently. Oh? What kind? A little this, a little that, Naruto said, slipping a cube of salmon in his mouth. Oh come on, don't go trying to be all cool on me. I'm your sensei, you know, I can help with this stuff. Naruto smiled, swallowing. Iruka wasn't making the whole hide info thing easy on him. Mainly chakra control. Not much. I've been telling you that you needed to work on that for years now. Kakashi finally break through to you? Yeah. Taught us tree walking while in Nami no Kuni. Been expanding on that. Iruka raised a brow. You didn't say your mission was out of country. So you encountered foreign missing ninja. Naruto let out a curse under his breath. You knew I was trying to be elusive about details, didn't you? Well, when you make it so easy to pick up on, so, what really happened? Got bumped to an A rank. The Jonin was one of the 7 swordsmen of the mist, Zabuza Mamachi. Iruka's mouth dropped, then he smiled. You nearly got me on that one. Good trick, using something outlandish to try and hide the real truth. I wasn't lying. A beat of silence passed over the table. You're not, are you? Kami, Naruto, you're lucky Kakashi is your Jonin sensei. I can count the number of other Jonin in the village that could keep up with the likes of him. Naruto gave a solemn nod to this. I wasn't joking about the whole opening my eyes thing. Seeing how outclassed I was. Made me realize how much work I have to do. I just hope I can get it all done before another Zabuza happens. Most ninja never face even one Zabuza in their career, Naruto, let alone multiple. Not unless we go to war. Just a stroke of bad luck. I wouldn't worry about it too much. Naruto simply stared out the window. The cage bunshin gave a loud pop as Naruto's kunai slipped into its armpit. A blast of smoky wind blew in his face where the clone's fist would have been moments ago. A clean kill, straight to the heart, but Naruto would have been hit if it was real. Naruto sat back in the grass, panting. He threw his head back to the sky, taking in deep gulping breaths, before slowly coming to his feet. He lifted his fingers, forming the hand sign for a cage bunshin, the kunai spinning in a deft whirl between his fingers as he did so, and coming to a rest in his palm, just as his clone popped into existence. He smiled. He was still 50-50 on not dropping the kunai when he did that, but at least he wasn't nicking his wrist and fingers every time he tried like he was 5 days ago. He'd been practicing weaving hand seals with kunai when his hands had free time, whether it was while he was jogging, while reading scrolls, or anything else, and the results were starting to pay off. The clone wove through some hand seals, transforming into an unremarkable teenager, maybe 15, but notably with a longer reach than him. Naruto needed practice fighting against different reaches. He also needed to find some dull kunai that his clones could practice on him with. As it stood, he'd only been practicing against enemies without weapons. Naruto panted, falling into his semi-invented stance. Reading Haku scrolls, alongside experience in spars, meant that Naruto quickly found a number of good tips on fighting with knives, the number one tip being that there was 2 ways to fight with a knife. The first was with a knife in your lead hand, Naruto's left, which gave it a lot more speed in things like cuts and stabs against arms and torsos, but left you quite a bit more open. The other way was to fight with your knife in your rear hand, Naruto's right, which allowed a lot more defense and control with your lead hand, and power in your stabs. You were also less likely to be disarmed. Naruto had been favoring the later against hand-to-hand opponents, but he imagined the former was better when facing off against another blade, as it allowed for parries, cuts to the arm hand wielding the knife, and so on. As it stood now, he simply chose the rear hand option, blade in a forward grip close to his chest, left hand forward and open, ready to grab. Reverse grips on a knife were better for cutting and hooking around things, and he favored them when using the knife in his lead hand, but straight grips were better for stabbing and general knife dexterity, which he preferred in his rear hand. The clone bounced on its feet before weaving and closing in. Naruto backed up, slipping out of the way of a left hook. That was one disadvantage to his stance. If he wanted a straight grip, then guarding the right side of his face was a bit harder, as evidenced by the thankfully small cut on his cheek from 2 days ago, when he blocked a left roundhouse with his forearm and had his kunai dug a little into his face. He remedied it by using his left arm as a post, holding it out. It forced a barrier for them to get around and made their movements a bit more predictable, as they had to either parry the hand away, try and go around it, or risk getting their wrist or arm grabbed, which led to being stabbed 9 out of 10 times. Limiting the amount of ways an opponent could attack made their options a bit easier to respond to. Naruto's nose was grazed by wind as a follow-up jab nearly touched him. Naruto watched his clone's movements carefully, spotting a telltale left roundhouse winding up in the turn of its hips. That was a mistake, going for something so slow with little setup. Naruto grimaced. Though he was happy to be able to spot things like that, it only showed the slowness of his own kicks. Naruto ducked, the kick whipping his hair as he uprooted the clone's right ankle with his free left hand. The clone went toppling, and Naruto swept down with the kunai to its exposed abdomen as it lay on the floor. The clone raised a panicked hand to stop the blade, which sank through its wrist and then nailed it into its stomach, not lethal, but a good inch deep. It poofed out of existence. That was a problem with fighting clones, they never went the distance. Though the fight would have been over with his wrist injury, Naruto still needed, the experience of securing the kill against an injured opponent. He sat back in the grass, panting for breath. Sparring took so much out of a person. With exercises like tree climbing, he could go at whatever pace he wished to set, but with sparring, your opponent forced you into a pace. The difference seemed small, but the result was enormously different on one's stamina. Naruto sat there for a bit. Speaking of chakra control, it was going incredibly well. He was often interrupted during the wave mission, as he was on guard duty from 9 to 5 with Tazuna. That meant he often didn't have much of the day to devote to tree climbing. Now, he could fully apply himself, with almost 5 hours of his day being devoted to it, 2.5 in the morning, 2 at night. As a result, he could already walk casually up a tree and stand without falling. He could also stick with his hands, and while hand springing was still tricky, as he had to quickly shift chakra from his hands to his feet, he had pretty good success this morning. Rolling up a wall was still out of reach. He tried sparring on a tree last night, and good kami if that wasn't the hardest exercise he'd ever done. Having to focus on channeling chakra and his opponent at the same time led to probably the hardest chakra control exercise he'd ever done. The amount of times he and his clone lost focus and fell before catching themselves was a bit too much for him to feel comfortable fighting higher up on the tree. As Naruto thought on these things, he was preparing to stand and make another clone, the last for this hour before he'd move on to accuracy, before he heard a rustle in the grass. He turned. There sat a square cardboard box, painted to look like a light brown rock, with eye holes on the front. Naruto cocked an eyebrow. There was only one person he knew dumb enough to make a disguise like that, in a field full of grass no less. Not your best work there, Konohamaru, Naruto said. He covered his eyes as the kid let off a flash bomb for whatever reason, before revealing himself, smoke circling around him. You saw through my disguise, boss. Konohamaru said. He was wearing the goggles Naruto had gave him, his large scarf tied around his neck. Naruto smiled at the kid. Shouldn't you be in the academy right now, Kon? Naruto asked. I'm sure Ibisu is probably out looking for you right about now. Let him look. I could learn more under you in a day than from him or the academy in a whole year. Besides, I still need to learn the Kage Bunshin of yours. He said with a finger pointed towards him. Naruto grimaced. I'm not too sure about that. Ibisu is a Takebetsu Jonin. He knows a lot more about being a ninja than I do. What? But you totally trounced him not even a month ago. That was with a dumb jutsu that would never work in a real life or death situation. If me and him actually fought, I doubt I'd last more than a handful of moments. Konohamaru was looking skeptical. You alright, boss? You seem different. Naruto smiled down at him. The innocence of Konohamaru was striking something in him. There was a sense where he wanted Kon to know exactly the profession he was getting into, so he'd stop fooling around and take his time at the academy seriously, but there was another part of him that wanted to preserve that innocence while he had it. Let him be a kid for a little while longer. Besides, he figured with someone like Kon, no amount of talking would really make him see. He'd likely need that same experience Naruto had, which wasn't coming anytime soon. Thus been taking my career as a ninja a bit more seriously. Naruto stood, stretching. Who were you fighting just now? You totally destroyed him. How'd you make him puff up into smoke like that? If you thought I was actually facing an enemy, you should have ran to tell someone in the village, and you especially shouldn't run out in the open if you don't know whether he was dealt with. Naruto said with a smile. But to answer your question, that was just one of my clones I was sparring with. I thought you'd seen them puff like that before. Oh yeah, he said. Hey, can you teach me that Kage Bunshin? No, Kon, that's a B-ranked forbidden technique from the Scroll of Seals. Alongside it being illegal to teach, you don't have anywhere near the chakra reserves to try and perform it. You'd likely die of chakra exhaustion from even attempting it. Oh, come on, boss. I said no, Kon, maybe when you're at least a chunin and if you have permission from the Hokage. Even then, I'm not even sure it would be a good jutsu for you to learn. It would likely still run you out of chakra for little gain until you're at least Jonin or higher, but that'll take forever. Come on. Naruto sighed. I've said no twice now. I need to practice accuracy and you need to get back to the academy. Please, 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 Konohamaru pleaded, hands clasped. Han, this isn't something you can handle. Now follow me, I need to get you back to the academy. Konohamaru simply sat, arms folded. No way. I'm not going anywhere till you teach me this jutsu. Come on, Kon, don't be like that. That doesn't sound like you teaching me Kage Bunshin. He said, nose up, eyes closed, a frown on his face. Naruto thought for a moment and sighed. Konohamaru thought it sounded like a sigh of resignation because he looked up, hopeful. Naruto wished it was a sigh of resignation. He didn't like what he was about to do. He flicked his head in the direction of the village. Alright, come on. Follow me. Wait, what? You're gonna teach me? Sure. Need to take you to a private training grounds to do it, though. It is illegal, so I can't have anyone seeing me teach you. Konohamaru jumped for joy and the two set off on the road leading back into the village proper. Naruto walked with his hands behind his head, Konohamaru trying to imitate him. So how many clones does the jutsu let you make? Naruto took a right down an alleyway and then a left on the next parallel street. I'll tell you when we get there. What are the hand signs? Naruto did a lap around a building without Konohamaru even noticing. I'll tell you when we get there. How long do they last? Where's the training ground at? Can you send a clone to the academy and just stay home? Naruto was now wandering aimlessly, but still, Konohamaru didn't seem to notice, too distracted by the idea of learning a jutsu. Han, I appreciate the enthusiasm, but I'll tell you when we get there, okay? Okay, boss. Naruto and him walked for a bit. He peeked over his shoulder. He still didn't see the man, or even know 100% if he was tailing him. Despite being good at stealth, that didn't automatically make you good at detection, something else Naruto needed to improve. Still, the man wasn't a Takebetsu Jonin for nothing, so Naruto had no doubt he was following them. Naruto went into an alleyway and stopped. Come on out, Ibisu. He said. For a moment, nothing happened, Konohamaru staring up at him in confusion. Naruto felt a bit stupid. He thought for sure the man would find him sooner, with all the time he wasted just wandering. But then, a pair of Ibisu clones dropped on either end of the alley from seemingly nowhere. The real Ibisu Shunshin ed into existence right in front of Naruto. Ah, Uzumaki. Trying to steal my student again? Ibisu said, smiling and pushing his dark glasses up his nose. Konohamaru was backing up, not having noticed the alley's entrance behind him was also blocked off. Boss, run. He said, turning. Naruto merely snatched out a hand, grabbing his wrist and dragging him back forward. Konohamaru looked up at him in confusion. The opposite, actually, Naruto said to Ibisu, just needed some time to make sure you were on my trail. Still pretty bad at detecting others. I believe you were looking for him. Naruto gently pulled Konohamaru forward as Ibisu raised an eyebrow. He came looking for me for some training. Didn't seem to want to take no for an answer. Konohamaru finally seemed to catch on. Boss, you liar. Naruto grimaced a bit, retelling himself that it was for Konohamaru's own good, even if he didn't know it. He'd rather have Kon mad at him for a week and alive because of that extra hour of studying than friendly with him and dead. I see, Ibisu said, and this isn't some perverse trick like last time. Naruto shook his head. On that note, I'd like to apologize for all that. I've been trying to take being a ninja a bit more seriously. I hope this is a good gesture. Ibisu studied him for a moment, frowning. Accepted. He said after a moment, I do hope your change lasts. You could be a splendid ninja if you applied yourself. He laid a hand on Konohamaru's shoulder. Come, honorable grandson. Konohamaru reached his arm out from Ibisu's grip. He turned to Naruto. I thought you were cool. He turned, walking in the direction of the academy as he took off his goggles and threw them aside. Ibisu's clones flanked him on either side as he entered the street and Naruto and Ibisu watched him go. Despite my initial hesitation with your influence, he was taking his studies a bit more seriously after encountering you. I do hope this doesn't revert him back. Hopefully not. Naruto said. I'm trying to tell myself it's for his own good. It is. You made the right choice. Ibisu said. Your mission to the wave has been all over the rumor mill among those with high enough rank to read the briefing. I assume your change is its work. Naruto nodded. Then I wish you the best in your endeavors. If you need a favor for this, I'm open. Anything reasonable, of course. Naruto thought for a moment. Actually, I might cash that in now. You have any tips for rolling up a tree? Been trying to get that one down and I've been having trouble with it. Ibisu smiled. First, do it on a smooth wall. Bark is much more rough on your skin. Naruto smiled back. Second, there's a good trick to it. Most try to force their chakra to stick along their back and then into their feet by manually moving it along their skin. Instead, try to focus the needed chakra and roll it in your network at the same rate you roll physically. If you get the timing down, it will stick for you. However, if you're looking to improve chakra control, I'd actually recommend doing it the manual way during training. Since it's the harder method, it'll improve your control even more. Makes sense. Thanks, Ibisu, he turned and then turned back. Oh, almost forgot. Khan was trying to convince me to teach him the Kage Bunshin. I said no of course, but I wouldn't put it past him to try it on his own. I'd keep an eye on him in case he does. Of course. Thank you, and then after a moment's pause, he added Naruto. He shunshined away, leaving a cloud of smoke. Naruto turned, making his way back to the training ground. It was strange. He'd tried so hard to be recognized before the wave as a ninja, as a legitimate person. Now it seemed the moment he dropped that in favor of actually applying himself as a ninja, the recognition came. He smiled. It felt good. I don't own Naruto. Enjoy. Naruto, would you stop? Naruto paused his practice as he looked down at Sakura, who was upside down from his current vantage point. He'd been walking in a circle around the support arch of the bridge, all while weaving hand signs with a kunai in between his fingers. It got particularly tricky when he was upside down, like he was now, and pausing had caused his kunai to fall spinning from his hands. He snatched it back out of the air before it could fall on his teammates. Sakura seemed even angrier at his near mistake. Not like Kakashi-sensei is gonna be here anytime soon. Might as well get some practice in, Sakura? Naruto said, resuming his walk. You're just trying to show off, aren't you? Sakura said, pointing an accusatory finger at him. Right, Sasuke. Sasuke ignored them both. See? He agrees. Naruto stepped back onto the floor of the bridge, his bangs falling back in his eyes as he did so. He frowned, flicking them away with his finger. He wanted to try wearing his forehead protector on his bicep since he'd seen many other ninja do so, but with his hair constantly in his eyes, he was probably gonna switch back. I don't think he said anything, Sakura. He didn't need to. Besides, you're just ignoring the original point. Well, a new voice said, I see my students are as friendly as ever. Kakashi sat atop the arch Naruto had just been doing laps on, book open, and knee up and his other foot dangling back and forth beneath him. Sensei? Sakura said. You're not as late as you usually are. It's only been 30 minutes. If you'd like, Kakashi said jovially, flipping a page of his book. I could leave and come back in an hour or two. What? No. It's just unusual, Naruto finished. Kakashi slipped off the arch, landing without a sound on the wood bridge. Naruto had to find out how he did that. Well, today's a bit special. I hope you all enjoyed your vacation. Got lots of training done. Naruto said. I saw. Well done, Naruto. Now, we were going to simply go get a mission today, but the Hokage has requested to see our team. More specifically, you, Naruto. Why me? Naruto said, thinking to anything he might have done wrong. The closest thing he could think of was making Konohamaru mad, and he doubted that was even on the old man's radar. Just some things regarding your recent developments. Oh, Sakura said, you mean his Hayo? Yes, Kakashi said, that. Let's not say it out loud until we get to the Hokage's office, shall we? Naruto frowned, and Team 7 followed. The trek to the tower had Naruto a bit on edge. He didn't think he was in trouble, it was more likely the Hokage just wanted to ask some questions about his bloodline. It wasn't every day one just popped up in a ninja, and they were quite valuable for a village. Still, even if he'd done nothing wrong, he couldn't quite help but feel like a kid getting called to the principal's office. Upon reaching the Hokage's office, they were allowed in by his clerk, and the door was shut behind them. The Hokage was smoking his pipe, his crystal ball in front of him on his desk. He seemed to sense Naruto's nervousness as he sent him a reassuring smile. Ah, Team 7. Excellent. He set down his pipe. Reporting, Lord Hokage, Kakashi said, his book away. Hiruzen nodded at him. Yes. First things first, your mission for today. He reached beneath his desk, pulling a scroll. I believe a D rank should suffice. You will need to paint Mr. Akura's fence, as it's been getting rather chipped lately. Kakashi approached, taking the scroll and putting it in his pocket. Yes, Lord Hokage. Now, onto our second matter of business. I've heard you've made quite the discovery, Naruto. He said, opening a drawer. Would you mind being kind enough to demonstrate it for me? He held out a slip of chakra paper. Naruto approached and took it. He focused his chakra, forming a seal as he did so. After just a second, the paper split, both sides becoming soaked and then freezing over. Naruto brought them to his mouth to puff some hot air on his fingers, de-sticking them from the frozen paper and handing them to the Hokage. As I thought, he said, examining them. Naruto stepped back in line with the rest of Team 7. And you discovered this a week ago? Yeah, Naruto said. Thought I'd use the pay from the wave mission to pick up some supplies and decided to grab some chakra paper on a whim. I see. Have you told anyone other than Team 7? Naruto took a moment to think whether he'd told Iruka a few days back while at dinner. He didn't think so. No, he didn't. He'd been doing the whole hide info thing, and he'd probably remember his sensei's reaction if he did. No, just Sakura, Sasuke, and Kakashi sensei. And have either of you told anyone? Hiruzen asked. No sir, Sasuke said. Sakura, however, looked nervous. Well, I think I might have told my mom. Is that okay, sir? As long as she hasn't mentioned it to anyone else. Hawk. In a blur of movement that didn't even kick up wind or rustle the papers on the Hokage's desk, a hawk mask Anbu was by his Hokage's side. Do visit the Haruno residence on Hana Street and inquire to Ms. Haruno if she has mentioned Naruto's bloodline to anyone, would you? Yes, Lord Hokage, the Anbu said, disappearing as soundlessly as he came. The third saw Sakura's concerned expression. Don't worry too much, Sakura. Even if your mother told, she's not in trouble, nor are you. Sakura seemed to relax. I'd much rather that she has not, but things are not unsalvageable if she did. Old man? Naruto asked. Is there a problem? Potentially, if this can't be kept under wraps, the Sandaime said, picking his pipe back up and taking a few puffs. What do you know of the Hyoten bloodline, Naruto? It combines wind and water elements together to form ice release, he said. Do you know where it originates? Mizuno Kuni, right? Correct. Do you know anything about the bloodline purges that occurred in Mizuno Kuni? Just that they happened. Not much else. Then allow me a bit of a history lesson. Mizuno Kuni, for nearly the last 2 centuries, has been plagued by a series of civil wars. Nearly 75 years ago, a popular movement began in response to this endless stream of bloodshed called the Bloodline Purges. You see, many elite shinobi in Kurigakure were tasked with rebellion suppression on a regular basis. Kurigakure was also host to possibly the highest amount of unique bloodlines in all the ninja villages. As a result, few of their regular shinobi could climb the ladder to the higher ranks, as the best of the best all had the advantage of a bloodline, catalyzing their development as ninja. Since these elite ninja were almost exclusively bloodline users, and the elite ninja were almost exclusively tasked with suppressing dissent, many began to view bloodlines as synonymous with bloodshed. As a result, much of the blame for nearly a century of war was put on those who used bloodlines by many of the people. But that's just crazy, Sakura said. They weren't responsible, they were just all in the wrong position cause of circumstance. Indeed. The Sandaime said if only they listened to such wisdom. Unfortunately, there began a popular belief that if the bloodlines could be wiped out, then so could the civil wars. It did lead to nearly half a decade of relative peace, but it was foolish to think such a thing would end their strife, as this most recent civil war has shown. Regardless, mob mentality is not the topic of today's discussion. Despite the movement being one of the people, the government of Mizuno Kuni could not ignore one of the most uniting factors that had been seen in their country for the last century, and so capitalized for the sake of stability. The bloodline purges became sponsored by the daimyo himself. Now, with all that information being said, allow me to ask a question. What do you think Kurigakure thought of their daimyo outlawing the bloodlines of almost all their most elite shinobi? I guess they wouldn't like it. Naruto said. Hiruzen chuckled. An understatement, but yes. They did not like it. The Mizukage pleaded with his daimyo quite a bit but was unable to dissuade him. The bloodline purges officially began, and many of Kiri's ninja were executed, while the rest fled with their families underground. However, the Mizukage did get his daimyo to approve a law that would soften the blow. If you are a shinobi village, what is your greatest threat? Other villages? Sakura asked. Indeed. And if other villages learned that you were suddenly getting rid of all your bloodlines, what do you think they would do? Probably try to capture someone with a bloodline so you could start your own clan. Sakura said. Correct. That, or choose the easier option of offering asylum to any clan under persecution. Given the large body of water between the mainland and Mizuno Kuni, and that most boats are regulated in their country, trying to capture a foreign missing ninja is a lot harder than it would be in other nations. A family or individual trying to smuggle themselves out, however, is much more doable. Now, if you were the leader of Kurigakure, you would like to prevent that, yes? Yeah. No reason to give potential enemies a bloodline, Naruto said. So, Mizuno Kuni passed a declaration against the capture or offer for asylum to any persecuted bloodline from any foreign government. To do so would incur open hostility from Kurigakure and Mizuno Kuni. You mean like a war? Sakura asked. When the purges first began, perhaps, but Kiri could not afford such a thing now with their current civil war. But the extreme souring of diplomatic relations, cutting off trade, and so on, are likely candidates. Added to that, Konoha has few allies as it is, with Iwa and Kumo both being rivals, and having only recently obtained our alliance with Suna. Kiri's current government is aligned with Iwa and Kumo, but the overthrow of their current government is almost all but guaranteed within the next year or two. This means the future of Kurigakure's political affiliations are up to the air, so upsetting the rebel faction is not on our to-do list. This leaves us with you, Naruto. On file, you are an orphan born during the Kyuubi attack, with no known parentage or traceable lineage, and yet somehow has a known last name, Uzumaki, one of the oldest and closest clans to Konoha. And you suddenly have a bloodline native only to Mizuno Kuni. If you were the leader of Kurigakure and you found out about this, what would you think? But he was a stolen Yuki, Sasuke said before Naruto could answer, and that everything on his file was a cover story. The Uzumaki lineage to make him look like he was closely tied to the village, the orphan status to look like his parents lived in the village and were just a casualty of the Kyuubi attack. Correct, Sasuke. If Mizu no Kuni knew the truth of Naruto's bloodline, they would likely demand him be handed over at once. Don't worry in that instance, though, Naruto. I would not trade you for political relations with a nation barely able to keep itself together for more than 20 years at a time. Thanks, Lord Hokage. So am I, Yuki? Naruto asked. The Hokage puffed a bit at his pipe, eyes closed, contemplative. It was the same expression he wore the last time Naruto asked him about his parentage, nearly 2 years ago. We don't know, he said. I can assure you Konoha did not steal you or your parents from Mizu no Kuni. Plans were written up during my first reign as Hokage on what we would do if we wanted a bloodline from Kiri. This was a mock scenario, though, nothing close to a greenlit mission. It was also determined that the one with the Futenkeke Jinkai would be a far more desirable target than any other bloodline, as it would have a higher chance of being passed down with our shinobi, given part of Boil Release's Kaiten nature. In fact, Hyoten was near the bottom of the list, as Futen nature is so rare in Konoha. But like I said, this mission was never executed in my reign, nor the fourth's, to my knowledge. I currently have a team of Anbu en route to Nami no Kuni to obtain a DNA sample from the corpse of the Yuki clan member your team fought, so that we might cross-reference it with your own DNA. If you are a Yuki, your parents must have been using a fake name to escape the possibility of Konoha turning them over to Kiri. If you are not, well, I doubt it would matter, as Kiri would be unlikely to believe the true story regardless, even less so if we claimed we had no idea how a bloodline native to Mizu no Kuni suddenly popped up in a supposedly non-Yuki ninja. So if I'm not, then how did I get it? We have a few working theories in that scenario, each more unlikely than the last. But before we go wasting time and resources, let us get the obvious answer, whether you're a Yuki, out of the way first. The Hokage glanced up as Hawk appeared beside him again. She claims to have not mentioned it to any known acquaintance, Lord Hokage. I informed her of the information's ranking and her responsibility to keep it. Hawk said. The third nodded. Thank you, Hawk. You're dismissed. Hawk bowed and vanished again. Ranking, Lord Hokage? Sakura asked. Quite. Given the sensitivity of the situation, the knowledge of Naruto's bloodline is now an A-ranked village secret until further notice. Revealing this information to others is, therefore, a punishable offense. So Naruto said, I'm guessing that means I can't use my bloodline, then. I didn't say that, the Hokage said. Naruto perked up. Your bloodline makes you an incredibly important asset to the village, on par with Sasuke and his Sharingan, here, since your descendants have the ability to start a clan. Not only would we be throwing away a valuable asset and not allowing you to use it, but also unnecessarily restricting your capabilities as a ninja in life or death circumstances. On top of that, research into your bloodline will need to start at some point. A future clan will need secret techniques, exercises, and so on, or they will all be stumbling in the dark. To not start with you would only be wasting time that could have been spent taking your bloodline to new heights for yourself and your children. So, does that mean I can? Somewhat. We're walking a tightrope here, Naruto. We need to control risks as much as possible. You are cleared to use your bloodline in emergency circumstances, at your Jonin sensei or current commander's discretion, or on missions that I or any other acting Hokage have cleared. If used against an enemy combatant, I implore you to secure the kill against him or her, that the information of your bloodline might not get out. Otherwise, your use of it, even in your daily training, is forbidden. Then how am I supposed to get good enough at it to use it? I'm currently looking into solutions. It is likely that we will need to give you a private location and instructor. But Naruto, I must stress the importance of your minimal use of this bloodline during these next few months, no matter how tempting it may be. The Chunin exams are approaching, meaning Konoha will be hosting a variety of ninja, all from different villages. We can enforce the secret on our own ninja if they see you do it, but not those in other villages. So do be careful. Will do, old man. Naruto said, before being slapped on the side of the head by Sakura. Naruto, be more respectful. This is the Hokage, and he's talking about something super important. On that note, Kakashi said, are we dismissed, Lord Hokage? You are. Expect a messenger to be in touch with you soon, regarding training, Naruto. Kakashi nodded and then handed their mission scroll to Sasuke. Sasuke, you lead the team to the Akura residence to paint that fence. I'll be joining you shortly. Sasuke nodded as Team 7 filtered out of the room. The Hokage puffed his pipe as Kakashi listened for his team's footsteps to fade down the staircase. So is the Anbu squad on the way to Nami no Kuni real, or not? It is. Truth be told, Naruto could actually have Yuki blood on either Kushina's or Minato's side. We know Minato's parents lived in Konoha. However, his grandparents are somewhat vague. It is believed they immigrated from a coastal village on the border of Kawa, no Kuni and Kei's no Kuni, hence his Futen nature, but it's not certain. Kushina's parents are a complete mystery, as most of the information on them was destroyed alongside Yasushi Ogakure. Do you remember her or Minato saying anything about them? Kakashi thought for a moment. If I'm remembering right, and that is an if, I think Minato-sensei once said she got her red hair from her father. That would imply her mother had a different hair color and so maybe wasn't in Uzumaki. Though, I could be remembering that wrong, and he could have said hairstyle instead of hair color. The Sandaime didn't comment on this. Sir Kakashi followed, if I may. Yes Kakashi? The Sandaime asked. I have a recommendation. You could reveal his parentage, Lord Hokage. The Hokage stood, staring out the window, back to Kakashi as thought in contemplation. I've given that thought as well, and I don't deny myself tempted by the option. Revealing him as Kushina and Minato's son would save much effort and allow us to go public with his bloodline, as it would be easily verifiable his parents are not Yuki. But, it would come at the price of putting a target on young Naruto's back. Even with the change of heart you described, the boy remains quite the headache, politically if not socially. Konoha has been needing to show its ninja's quality. Kakashi said we lost last generation's crop of potential S-tier ninja with Shisui's death and Itachi's defection. A lot of A-tiers went down the drain in the Kyuubi attack and the Uchiha massacre as well. No such talents have revealed themselves yet in this latest generation, on paper at least. We know Naruto will likely be A or S rank, given his Jinchuriki status, but the world doesn't know that. If we revealed we had the fourth son, and that he had a bloodline, and that he was a Jinchuriki, that would be a definitive statement. You're normally not so impersonal, Kakashi. Do I sense a desire to connect with the boy on his heritage? Only stating what I think is best for the village, Lord Hokage. The Hokage closed his eyes, smiling. Of course. Rest assured, I am giving it thought. Dismissed. Kakashi bowed and left the room, leaving Hiruzen to stare out the window over the village he protected. Naruto dabbed his thumb with his tongue, trying to wipe the paint stain off his sleeve. Of course he decided to wear one of his long-sleeved shirts today, of all days. It wasn't even that cold out. He sighed, walking through the streets with his team towards the training grounds. His sensei did say he was going to inspect the three of them on their training over the week. Naruto stiffened a little as he passed a pair of chunin from Kumo, likely on some diplomatic or delivery mission. Naruto never had to worry about keeping the S-rank secret of his Jinchuriki status, except among his age range, as most everyone in the village already knew. Now, he felt like some kind of bomb would go off if he even stepped too close to a foreign ninja. Kakashi put a hand on his shoulder. Relax, he whispered in his ear. You deal in the business of secret keeping, now that you're a ninja. You're gonna have to learn how to look like you don't have any secrets to keep. Naruto let the tension drop out of his body, exhaling a breath as he did so. He focused on his sandals instead, the road underneath them, eventually turning from cobblestone to dirt as they got closer to the training grounds. The three familiar stumps of training ground 3 eventually came into view, the small river sparkling under the midday sun. One of the trees nearby was littered with kunai and shuriken. It appeared as though someone had been using the grounds recently. Naruto rolled his shoulder a bit as they came to a stop. Alright, Kakashi said. I suppose we should go ahead and get started. Sakura, do you still have that scroll from last week? Oh, sorry sensei, I forgot it at home. Do you want me to go get it? No, I'd like to have as much time with you three as possible before we break for today. I'd send a clone to get it myself, but in the interest of not scaring your mother any more than she likely has been today, let's just have you bring it next meeting. Sound good? Sakura nodded. On the topic of clones without a seal woven, 3-Cage Bunshin appeared next to Kakashi. Go ahead and pair with one of my clones, each of you, and we'll see how well you've spent your week. Kakashi took out his book. Hey. Sakura shouted, how come all of us have to work and the real you gets to just lounge around? Because assessing you one by one would be time wasting, and having the real me train one of you while the others get shadow clones would be favoritism. And we wouldn't want that, would we? Kakashi said, smiling through his mask. Take care. He said with a wave before disappearing into the trees. Naruto approached a clone as the other two went off into their own areas to practice. So, Naruto, how did this week's training go? The clone asked. Naruto removed his scroll detailing his training regiment and tossed it to his sensei. He read it over. You've been busy. I see most of your time has been devoted to chakra control as well. Good. I'm glad you're persisting and taking your training seriously. Thanks, Sensei. Naruto said. I've been trying to work hard for our next mission. I don't want a repeat of the wave. Kakashi nodded. Well, I was just going to test your chakra control, but seeing as you went above and beyond my expectations for your training, let's run down your list, shall we? How's your control? Naruto approached the nearest tree, stepping onto it without running, before performing a few lazy cartwheels and handsprings up. He came to a stop at a low branch and then rolled backwards down it, using Abisu's trick. He lightly kicked off just before reaching the bottom and his sensei gave him mock applause. Well done. Rolling manually is still out of my reach. Naruto said, I got a Takubetsu Jonin to show me the trick behind it, where you roll the chakra in your coils, but doing it the regular way is still tough. I didn't expect you to get that part down. I would have been pleasantly surprised if you could have even done one exercise in the scroll, let alone all of them. You've been working hard, Naruto. Naruto rubbed the back of his head, grinning. Now, it says here you've also been working on kunai sparring. Yeah. With clones. I think I've got the basics of knife combat down, but I've been having some trouble with integrating kicks and with my right high guard. Show me your stance. Naruto flicked out a kunai, settling into his improvised stance with his left hand forward and his right close to the chest. Kakashi circled him, examining. Alright, go ahead and keep your legs closer together. Your stance is very wide. In hand-to-hand fighting, that's okay, since a grounded stance helps strength. With a kunai, you don't need strength, you have instant lethality. That means mobility is more important and keeping the legs closer will help with your springiness. Naruto adjusted. I assume the front hand is for grabbing. That's effective and easy to learn for a beginner. Good instincts, Naruto. As for your right guard, there's a few good ways to help that. I want you to practice twirling your kunai from a front grip to an ice pick grip. Ice pick. Reverse grip. Naruto nodded. He'd not heard it called that before. Drill that until it's nearly instinctual. Then, when you raise your guard, you can flip the knife so it's facing them instead of you. Oftentimes, if you're quick and precise enough, you can aim your kunai for their oncoming fist. Go ahead and try it now. Naruto blinked, a bit surprised, then flipped his kunai into a reverse grip. Kakashi swung a back fist towards him and Naruto raised his guard. The kunai let off a quick chink as it impacted against the metal plate on Kakashi's glove. Good, again Kakashi said. Chink. One more, chink. Good. Kakashi said. Naruto flipped the kunai back around, falling back into stance with a smile. He liked that. He liked that quite a bit. He immediately wanted to start practicing flipping the kunai instead of having it in reverse grip to start. Now kicks, Kakashi said. Go ahead and show me how you kick. Naruto bounced a bit on his heels before lifting his lead leg and swinging it in a roundhouse. Kakashi brought up a forearm, blocking it with little trouble. Naruto repeated with his rear leg. This one, Kakashi simply leaned back from, swatting it forward as it went, throwing Naruto a little off balance. Naruto grimaced. It was awkward trying to generate power with his feet closer together like that. Right, Kakashi said. Did you learn roundhouses in the academy style? Naruto nodded. That makes sense. Roundhouses are your big glory kicks and they're probably the most damaging strike a human can throw, other than spinning roundhouses. But, like I said before, you don't need so much power. You have a knife. So what should I be throwing? Still throw roundhouses when you see the opportunity, but your bread and butter kicks should be different. Show me your side kick. Naruto bounced a little and lifted his leg up in an arc towards his sensei. Kakashi merely swatted it down. Not like that. Lift the knee up first. Really chamber it in close to the body, then shoot it forward. That's where the effectiveness of a side kick comes, that straight line. Naruto looked down at his feet and brought his lead knee up, then snapped it forward to his sensei's body. Kakashi caught it and Naruto grinned. That didn't feel nearly as awkward. And the punch in it. Good form. Make sure to turn on your back foot when you stab that leg forward and try to strike with the ball of your foot. The smaller the surface area you're striking with the better, unless you're trying to push them away. Again. Naruto lifted his knee and snapped his leg forward. Again, Kakashi caught it. Good. Eyes on me when you throw it. Look over the shoulder, not below it. One more. Naruto threw another. Good. Side kicks are a great kick for distance management and disrupting an enemy that is charging forward. Its weakness is non-linear movement. As you're throwing everything in a straight line, you leave your flanks open, so be careful of your sides when you use it. Do you know how to throw leg kicks? No, I've never heard of them. Naruto said. Kakashi fell into a stance. It's a kick that targets your opponent's thigh muscle or their calf muscle. Both are good places to hit, but the thigh is typically easier to hit. Isn't that a bit ineffective? Going for their legs? Kakashi merely smiled. Allow me to demonstrate. You need to know what it feels like to take one, anyway. Naruto shrugged, widening his stance a little, keeping his legs exposed. Kakashi whipped his hip around with practiced ease and his shin slapped into Naruto's left thigh. Even trying to maintain balance, Naruto immediately fell, holding his leg with both hands. How? Why? That hurt an unreasonable amount. Would you kick me so hard? Naruto said, through clenched teeth. He could feel the pulse in his thigh. I didn't, Kakashi said, offering Naruto a hand, which he took with a glare. You could see it coming, couldn't you? I didn't throw it with nearly my highest strength or speed. That was light, but that's the power of a leg kick. It hits your opponent's physiology. You're targeting all that soft muscle and nerves. On top of that, the legs carry all the weight of the body. Not only does that add to the pain as the muscles buckle under your weight, but it also disrupts your opponent's footwork. How easy is it for you to bounce around on that right now? Naruto didn't even want to try. Leg kicks can leave bruises that last for months. It takes away mobility and builds up damage very quickly. 3 good ones to the thigh can take away someone's ability to even stand. With enough practice, they can become the bread and butter of your kicking game. You like it when you can grab your opponent right. Cause that always leads to a hit with a knife. What if you could just send them to the ground with a leg kick? That's also always a kill if you have a kunai, and it's far cleaner than grabbing. Naruto nodded, still rubbing his thigh. So how do I throw them? First, how to defend them. A lot of people who have never seen them will instinctively try to catch or block a low kick with their hands. Don't. That's a fatal mistake that leaves your body and head open. When someone tries to go for a low kick, he turned his hip in slow motion, lifting his leg, then pausing before Naruto's thigh. You want to lift your own leg and block it with a shin. Naruto complied as Kakashi and his shins tapped together. That seems like it would hurt. It will. But it'll hurt far less than getting hit in the thigh. When you take enough of them, you start to become conditioned. Added to that, you might even break your opponent's shin on your shin, since yours has your thigh behind it and theirs doesn't. Life lesson of the day, drink your milk. Right, Naruto fell back into his stance without being told as Kakashi whipped a leg kick towards his thigh. Naruto lifted his knee and their shins collided. He hissed. Yeah, that did hurt, alright. Good. Now throwing them. Take a small step with your lead leg, then turn your hip and swing your rear leg to their thigh. You want to chop down on the thigh, not up. Naruto brought his leg around and it thudded against Kakashi's pants. He didn't even blink. Decent, but not great. Turn on your front foot like you would a roundhouse kick. Also, don't keep your leg extended. You want to whip the shin out at the last second. Naruto adjusted, already feeling the added punch from his form. His shin slapped into Kakashi's thigh. Good. Don't drop your right hand when you throw it. And don't get addicted to the sound either. The ones that make no noise are the ones that hurt the most. One more. Naruto obliged. Good. Practice those. Get good enough at using them that you can throw them off your footwork instead of just standing. He peered back down at the list. I see you've also been practicing senbon throwing. I assume that Hunter Nin left his mark on you? Not because of him. I didn't want to try them originally since they need a lot of practice before you can use them effectively. Got them for poison instead. Naruto turned, showing off his poison pouch, the 6 senbon needles sticking out it. Naruto had filled them yesterday since he would be on mission today. Never could be too prepared. The front 3 had his monitor lizard poison and the other 3 had his paralytic. I saw that. Poisons are a good tool to have. I don't carry any myself, but they're potent on the field. I'd mix up throwing regular senbon as well and feign them like they're poison. If you establish in a fight that your only poison weapon is senbon, then every senbon becomes poisoned, if you catch my meaning. That can make your opponents more cautious of them and can lead to movement control in setups. Naruto took a moment to marvel at just how much his sensei knew. These were things that would take days or weeks of training for him to realize, and Kakashi-sensei was numbering them off with practiced ease at a moment's glance. The gap between the two of them, he wanted to scale that, to be able to recognize things like Kakashi could. He wanted to be that effective. Alright. Are you done with that scroll? Kakashi asked. Naruto handed him the tree climbing scroll. Thank you. The real me is going to drop by your house later today to give you your next chakra exercise. Remember during the fight with Zabuza when we were stood on the water? Oh, yeah, that didn't even register in my mind that you were doing that. Was so distracted with Zabuza. It's considered the next step in chakra control after tree climbing. I'll give you a scroll detailing the exercise. I want you to practice in your free time. If you want, you can master rolling up the tree first before you tackle it. Naruto nodded. I've taken to sparring while on trees to improve chakra control. Should I switch to sparring on the water once I get that down? Practice both. You never know when you need to be able to fight on a different surface. With all that said, I believe my other clones are done with their assessments, meaning it's time for teamwork exercises. Naruto nodded, grinning. He couldn't help but look forward to his upcoming training with just everything he would get to practice. His Hyoten and chakra control and sparring. It just seemed like everything was starting to come together. I don't own Naruto. Enjoy. Genin Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto ran the white towel through his hair, glancing up at the Jonin and her team as she approached. Training Ground 3 wasn't super popular, but it was frequented since it was one of the few with a river or source of water. As a result, people that needed water to practice, whether it be his current exercise of water walking or practicing Suiton ninjutsu, often came here. Naruto had seen some Genin and Chunin practicing in the last week he was here, but he usually left them alone, and vice versa. As a result, this Kunoichi had taken him by surprise. Yes? He asked. From Lord Hokage. She fished a scroll from her pocket. Naruto dried his hand on his towel and took it. It was small, thin, and red, with the Hokage's insignia on it. Thanks, he said, swinging the towel over his shirtless shoulder before noticing her team. Oh, what's up guys? Shino, Kiba, and Hinata, three of his fellow academy students, all stood behind their Jonin sensei. Hinata seemed to be poking her fingers together, looking down at her feet, her face red, while Kiba had his hands behind his head with a boisterous grin on his face. Shino was calm and creepy as ever. You're a hard guy to find, Naruto. Kiba shouted. Sensei said we needed practice tracking, but this one was just dumb. Took us most of the afternoon to find you. Tracking practice? Naruto asked. A lot of the time their Jonin sensei said D ranks are just mindless manual labor. But, when possible, D ranks in which you could apply certain skills to go to certain teams. For a tracking and reconnaissance team like mine, hand deliveries to people who don't stay in one place are perfect. That made sense. Naruto guessed that was why catching Tora was such a popular mission, as you got to flex your muscles in tracking, search and destroy, ambushes, and so on. Still wearing that stupid orange I see. Why are you all wet? Kiba asked. Naruto took a glance down at his orange swimsuit. He neglected to buy a new one, since there was no reason to think he'd need a stealthy swimsuit. Even still, he'd think Kiba would spot his new clothes hanging on the tree branch over by the river. Oh. Chakra control practice. That earned a surprised look from their Jonin sensei, whose eyes flicked to the river, then to Naruto's wet hair. Heh. Kiba said, you're still on baby stuff like chakra control practice. I'll have you know that I've already mastered 3 clan jutsu since I've got out of the academy. And one is a C rank. Naruto felt a tinge of desire to tell Kiba he was able to perform a B-ranked forbidden technique and that he had a bloodline, but no. Not only was it an A-rank secret, but also the Chunin exams were approaching, and giving either away would be helping a potential enemy. Just like Kiba was helping him now. And, Naruto supposed the mature thing would be to not brag. Glad to hear it, Kiba. Hope you use them well in the field. Naruto said, earning a chi and a smirk from Kiba. He opened the scroll. Jen and Naruto Uzumaki. Their presence is requested at the Hokage's office come this Friday at 6:30 am in regards to your recent discovery. You are hereby granted permission to use training grounds number 51 when accompanied by an approved instructor. Signed Hiruzen Sarutobi. Naruto had never heard of training grounds 51. As far as he knew, Konoha only held 50. Here he rolled the scroll, nearly stuffing it in his swimsuit pocket on instinct before remembering they were wet and settled for just holding it. Thank you, Miss. Yuhi. Kurenai. Miss Kurenai. Naruto finished. He stood, stretching a bit. He approached a branch holding his clothes and slung his shirt over his head and stuffed the scroll in his cargo pants pocket, careful not to wrinkle the Chunin exam application his sensei gave him yesterday. He intended to swing by the tower and drop it off today, even if he had 2 weeks before the exams. He folded his cargo pants and swung them over his other shoulders, careful not to poke himself on the senbon protruding from his wet sheath. Well? Kiba said. What's the thing say? Kiba. Kurenai said. Knowing isn't part of our mission. It's time to go. Aw, come on. It's no big deal. What does the Hokage want with a loser like him? Kiba, stop antagonizing our client and drop it. Naruto looked over to the Jonin. Did she know? She likely had the clearance, since it was an A-rank secret. It's alright, like Kiba said, the info's not a big deal, Naruto said, reaching in his equipment pouch. His statement pulled a sharp look from Kurenai. So she did know. It's not actually from the Hokage, Naruto said, pulling his ID card out of his wallet, just the tower's administration desk. They want me to retake my ID photo this Friday. I may have dressed in clown makeup for my first one. Kiba took a single look at the card and then burst out laughing. Ah, still the idiot, eh Naruto? I'd have thought lucking out with becoming a genin might have made you a little more serious about being a ninja, but I guess not. Yeah, I guess not, Kiba, Naruto said, putting his card back in his wallet. Ah, Kiba, Hinata said. I don't think that's very nice, insulting Naruto like that, she said, eyes on her feet. Ah, come on, Hinata. It's all just poking fun. Besides, it's Naruto. I did tell you what he was like on the way here, eh, sensei? Kiba said, bursting into another round of laughter. Kurenai, meanwhile, was looking Naruto up and down, as if searching for something deeper. You did, she said, do see to it you arrive on time for that photo, Jen and Uzumaki. Will do. Thanks again, Kurenai. Naruto plucked the scroll back off the grass and then set off down the road back to the village proper. Kiba wiped a tear from his eye. Man, if I end up having to fight someone in the Chunin exams, I hope it's him, if his sensei was dumb enough to let him in, that is. Kiba said. I'd not underestimate him, Shino said, earning a surprised look from Kiba. I believe there's more to Naruto than meets the eye. Aw, come on. Naruto. Gimme a break. The guy's talentless, right, sensei? Kurenai said nothing, merely watching Naruto's back with an appraising look as he walked back down the road. Naruto glanced up the road towards the village, spotting the telltale tuft of brown hair sprouting off Konohamaru's head. What was he doing out here all alone? No, not alone. He was walking with two kids who Naruto did not recognize. Perhaps fellow academy students. Naruto smiled, running after them. Hey Konohamaru, Kon turned, spotting Naruto, before frowning. So it's you, huh? He said, turning up his nose. You're not still mad about the thing with Ibisu, are you? That was 2 weeks ago, Naruto said with a smile. Ibisu made me train all day after the academy. I was sore for the rest of the week. He said, arms crossed, looking away from him. The sore body now is a healthy body in the field. Kon, who are your friends? Nobody a liar like you should know. Kon said. I'm Mogi. I'm Yuden. Nice to meet you, Mogi, Yuden. You go to the academy with Kon, here. Hey. Konohamaru shouted, waving his arms. Don't just go introducing yourself to him. This is that guy I was telling you about that sold me out to Ibisu-sensei. Yuden said, adjusting his glasses. I dunno. He seems pretty nice to me. That's cause he hides beneath a friendly face. In reality, he's an evil liar. Konohamaru pointed an accusatory finger at Naruto, who raised a brow in return, still smiling. Alright. Naruto said, Kon, for what it's worth, I'm terribly sorry I stopped you from dodging your responsibilities. Could you please forgive me? Konohamaru folded his arms. I suppose, he said. Thank you, Kon, now dot. If you teach me your Kage Bunshin, he followed, a greedy grin on his face. You're still on that. Not even a lot of instances you can use it in right now, not being a ninja and all. Hey. Konohamaru said, I'll have you know that just last week I got hassled around by some guy with a weird headband and makeup. If I had Kage Bunshin, I totally could have beat him up. That's exactly why I wouldn't trust you with Kage Bunshin, Naruto said idly, cause you'd go around trying to use it to beat people up. Konohamaru started shouting something, but Naruto's head was elsewhere. Someone threatened the kid. And a foreign ninja, no less. That was gutsy, considering who Konohamaru was, or rather, who his grandfather was. Must have been a foreign gen in here for the Chunin exams who didn't know who Kon was. Hey, Kon, Naruto said, interrupting whatever tirade he was on. Listen, I can't teach you Kage Bunshin, since I've yet to hear any announcements about it no longer being, illegal to teach. But, maybe I can teach you something else. Perhaps the replacement technique would bide him over. Konohamaru said, depends on how cool it is. Jutsus aren't really about how cool they are, Kon. Easy for you to say. You probably dot. Naruto saw the wisp of smoke before anything else. He grabbed Kon and Yuden, who were closer to him, and immediately pulled them behind himself, heart thudding. They both tumbled to the dirt, Kon shouting in indignation. Naruto made to move towards Mogi, but the figure was already there behind her, his shunshin complete. Instead, Naruto drew a kunai, taking in as much detail as possible. Aim ninja, 2 umbrellas on the back, face mask, cloak, could have things hidden underneath. He seemed a little surprised at Naruto's immediate response. Naruto was a little surprised as well. Hey, what? Konohamaru said, still looking up at Naruto, not having even noticed the man. Who are you? Naruto said in what he hoped was a strong voice. What he hostile? He just performed a jutsu near a lone group in the middle of nowhere. Was Naruto just overreacting? Adrenaline was stampeding over any embarrassment as he looked the man in the eyes. The man chuckled before swiping up Mogi and jumped into the trees. Naruto started. Dang it. He should have expected that. Did he want him to follow? He would have just taken her under his nose if he didn't, right? Wait, no. What if that was a ploy? What if he was a jonin? What if he was in the trees waiting to pick off their group one by one? It was happening again. He was frozen against the demon brothers again, he was helpless against Haku again. Should he follow? Should he scan the surroundings first? Should he tell someone? What if he got Mogi killed? What if he killed her because Naruto sent for reinforcements? He needed answers, he needed someone to tell him what to do. How was he supposed to know what to do? What if all his training didn't matter? What if he died? He couldn't go out there, he had to run. Those who break the rules are scum, but those who abandon their friends are worse than scum. Naruto took in a breath. What was he thinking? He had 2 kids scared out of their minds right next to him, and they were looking at him for something to do. More than that, he had a scared little girl in a dangerous shinobi's arms who was counting on him. Ah, Naruto said, voice so commanding that it surprised himself. Back to the village, now. Both of you. Grab the nearest leaf shinobi you can find, tell him what happened. Boss, oh. Naruto shouted, throwing aside his swim trunks and towel, and taking off after the man across the trees. Think, Naruto thought, this is what you've been preparing for. Advantages, disadvantages. What do I have? First, expecting reinforcements, Naruto began slashing the kunai across the bark as he went. Hopefully, this would lead a trail for whoever was gonna follow him. What else? Stealth advantage. He knows I'm coming, but not from where. I can catch him by surprise. I'm also fighting on home turf, with hundreds of allied shinobi nearby. He must realize he's about to get swarmed, which means he's on a timer for whatever he's planning to accomplish with this, or he's fleeing the country. His advantages, a hostage. He wouldn't take one for no reason if he didn't want something, or Mogi herself. But to not target the Hokage's grandson, when he's right there focus, Naruto. What else? Unknown skill set, but the same goes for me on his side. He's older, likely more experienced. Then again, could be a genin here for the Chunin exams. Can't be sure either way. Naruto paused as he realized he could see something in the clearing ahead. He immediately stopped, anxious, forming a hand seal. Age Bushin no Jutsu, he whispered. The clone soundlessly appeared next to him, evidence of his chakra control training. He nodded at the clone, who hid behind the trunk of a tree a little before the front of the clearing. Naruto began curving his way around the clearing, taking in as much info about the situation as he could, heart pounding all the way. Mogi was tied up to a tree by ninja wire, her mouth bound. The wire was kept in place by kunai in the tree. Didn't wrap around. That meant he couldn't sneak up to untie it from behind the tree's cover. Clever. The kidnapper in question was stood before her, a hand on his hip, not even looking towards the front of the clearing, where his enemies could be coming. Naruto doubted it was that easy. Maybe this was a clone of some kind, or some other subversion. He didn't know for sure, but he should be ready if it was. Naruto looked up to the sky. Dang. Sun was angled down towards the man. If Naruto approached from behind and above, the best spot for ambushes, his shadow would give him away. That meant he had to approach simply from behind on the ground. But what was his plan? Take away his advantages, capitalize on my own, Naruto thought, silently falling to the forest floor. He needed to get the man away from Mogi. That was the biggest weapon he had in this scenario that Naruto knew of. If he could threaten her, Naruto was out of luck, as he certainly wasn't letting an academy student die before himself. That meant he had to drive the man away from her. But how? Divert his attention. Send the first clone down as a distraction, while the real you unties Mogi. No, wait, a clone unties her. Don't risk giving away your position if you don't need to. Naruto signaled the clone on the other end of the clearing to drop down on his mark. The clone nodded. Naruto made another one soundlessly, while he himself scaled up a tree, pulling a handful of shuriken. One clone to divert the man's attention, one clone to release Mogi, and himself to try and drive the man away from ambush cover if things went wrong with Mogi. Or to take him down after he got her out of there. Naruto's hands were sweaty against the metal of his kunai as he watched the man. Should he use his poison? No, he needed them to deter or to kill immediately. Unless the man knew his senbon were poison, which was unlikely, it wouldn't work as a deterrent from Mogi, as well as a handful of shuriken. He couldn't risk removing his Fuma shuriken from his scroll either. Too much noise from the unsealing. Naruto took in a breath, calming himself, before he counted down to the clone at the far side of the clearing. Here we go. 3, 2, hey, freak. Naruto was gonna kill Konohamaru if he got out of this. I expected that shinobi from earlier. Instead I got a little runt and his sidekick. The man held up a kunai to Mogi's neck as Naruto's clone on the far end of the clearing jumped between Konohamaru and Yuden and the kidnapper. Han, back. The clone shouted. Boss. Khan shouted. SHH. The clone said, eyes on the man in front of him. Naruto mentally cursed. If Khan was here, that meant he wasn't getting backup from the village. There goes one of his advantages. And the kidnapper just got 2 more in return, in the form of 2 more potential hostages, and 2 more people Naruto had to worry about him targeting if it came down to a fight. There you are. The man said. Don't move. If you do, the brat is dead. I want the Hokage's scroll of seals. The man was keeping his eyes on the clone, who was the only threat in the clearing in his mind. Naruto could use that. He signaled his clone to keep the man talking. All Naruto got back was a flick of the eyes in his direction. The clone couldn't risk anything more. Naruto signed to his other clone to get Mogi out while he stood ready with his shuriken, in case he needed them. They're in a now hostile village with no allies and 1 hostage. The clone said, I've already sent word to the village. Soon, you'll be swarmed by enemy shinobi. Drop the kunai and let her go now and you won't be killed on the spot when they arrive. Naruto watched the other clone soundlessly slip around the tree, nervous, before reshifting his gaze to the man. He should keep his eyes on the enemy and trust his clone. Not focusing on the enemy could let him miss something. Still, Naruto felt a bead of sweat roll down his cheek, as though his clone would mess up if he wasn't watching him. You're bluffing. The man said, you were all alone in that clearing, there was nobody to send. Besides, as if a genin like you could make promises on what your superiors could do. Now. The scroll please. Naruto felt himself relax, giving a great mental sigh of relief as the clone slid beside him, Mogi in his arms, a hand on her mouth. Better out, inform the village. Naruto signed. The clone nodded, taking off in the trees as Naruto looked back down at the clearing, an idea forming in his head. He soundlessly made another clone, this one weaving the hand signs for the henge as soon as it was created before it turned into Mogi, dropping back down and weaving around the tree. It rewrapped the bindings around itself as slowly and silently as it could. Even past his anxiety, Naruto felt some sense of accomplishment. He now had an advantage the man knew nothing about. Even if I'm bluffing, the clone said you can't afford to call it. What do you get out of this even if it doesn't go my way? 4 dead leaf citizens and a squad of elite Anbu tracking you all the way back to aim. Naruto wiped the sweat from his forehead. He still needed to take the guy down and get Kon and Yuden out of here. He already proved he could sneak up on the guy. Maybe he cloud slip behind him and take him out. Wait, what if that was a ploy and the man knew he was there? No, he wouldn't give away a hostage like that for nothing in return if he knew. I can assure you with certainty that I would make it back to aim far before they found your corpses. The man said. Naruto slipped a poison senbon out of his wet sheath. They asphyxiate to the man's neck, then a kunai to follow. The Mogi clone could back him up if things went south. Wait, no. If this guy was here for the Chunin exams, he had a team with him. He may not be working alone. He should capture him. Paralytic it was then. Having seen your speed a second ago, the clone said, I can assure you with certainty that they'll get to you before you get to another country. I'll say again, drop the kunai and release the girl. Naruto slipped down the tree, approaching low and slow, paralytic senbon in one hand, kunai in the other. He held his breath as he approached, his pulse drumming in his head, anxiety coursing through his veins. I'll say again. Get me the scroll. Naruto's senbon slipped into the back of the man's neck as Naruto rushed to immediately put the kunai under his throat. What did he do now? He still had the kunai, he had to make sure to force all his advantages away. That's a paralytic. 20 seconds and you lose all major muscle movement. 30 and you lose the ability to talk. Drop the kunai. Nah, the man was interrupted as the Mogi clone took this moment to drop the henge, breaking through the bonds in a split second before grabbing the kidnapper's wrist, which was far too slow at this point to stop him. He slipped a second kunai under his chin. The pair forced the man to his knees, the real Naruto now holding his other wrist and fingers with his free hand, just in case he could perform one-handed seals, as rare as they were. Not a word. You have 2 kunai to your throat. Any movement, anything that might sound like a jutsu, any slip of chakra through your coils, and they go in your neck. You're done. Drop the kunai. The man complied, his fingers twitchy as he did so, the kunai clattering on the grass below. Let them out of here, Naruto shouted to his other clone by Konohamaru and Yuden. He nodded, picking them both up, much to Konohamaru's chagrin, before departing into the woods. Then Naruto, the man said through clenched teeth in a very strained voice. Naruto paused the kunai that he nearly slipped into the man's throat as he registered that he just heard his own name. How do you know my name? Naruto said. I'm Iruka. Henge. Don't drop it. No chakra, Naruto said, mind racing as quick as it could. Was it a trick? He only had a bit before the man's ability to talk was done. Think. What did Iruka say to me when I got my first headband? Oh, open your EA. The man couldn't finish the sentence, but Naruto let the kunai off his throat, his clone dispelling. He let go of the man's wrist, which he now realized had been keeping the man kneeling, since Iruka dropped to the floor as soon as he let go. Even paralyzed, however, his chakra still worked. The illusion dispelled, revealing his academy instructor. Naruto slipped open a pocket on his cargo pants, opening his travel scroll and unsealing his paralytic antidote, uncorking it and slipping it down his sensei's throat. A dozen seconds passed, Naruto waiting with bated breath in the meantime. What if the antidote didn't work? But Naruto breathed a sigh of relief as Iruka began coughing. But Kami, Iruka-sensei. Naruto said, what are you doing? You know how many times in the last minute I was about to throw a shuriken at the back of your head. Are you alright? Can you move? It's coming back, Iruka said groggily. He made to sit up, but that was still a bit out of reach. Man, IG got pins and needles all over my body. Where'd you get that, Naruto? Equipment store. One of Suna's paralytics. Naruto said, his heart rate finally coming down, the adrenaline in his body slowing its sprint. Yeah, he said, eyes squeezed shut. Yeah, that explains it. Sensei, what in the world were you doing? A test. He said, Kakashi, he recommended you for the Chunin exams. Wanted to make sure you were ready. Hokage gave me a mission just for it. He struggled a bit to sit up on his arms. Things started falling into place for Naruto. The man keeping his back to the front of the clearing, trying to take it a little easy on him. Not stealing Konohamaru when he was the far more valuable target. You couldn't have, I dunno, just ask me for a demonstration. Didn't expect you'd go poisoning me. He said, sliding up against a tree in a sitting position. Naruto helped him up. Or to get the drop on me for that matter. Sakura and Sasuke both couldn't force me out of my henge. How long did you have that clone there in Mogi's place? Just a little after the first clone dropped down. You're lucky Khan doesn't listen. I told him to get back to the village when you first kidnapped her and was planning on an ambush before he rushed in. If I didn't have that extra time to think, I don't know if I would have thought about the need for you to be interrogated instead of just killed. You had clones around the clearing the whole time. Well, yeah. I wasn't gonna just give away the possibility of an ambush for no reason. That's just throwing away my kunai pouch for no gain, Naruto said. His sensei stared up at him before letting out a light chuckle, laced with a few coughs. What's so funny, Naruto asked. Nothing, just how much you've grown, Iruka said. Naruto smirked. So I'm guessing I passed your little test then, considering I just outplayed a Chunin. Naruto knew his sensei hadn't been expecting near the showing he got and had been taking it easy on him. Still, Naruto could help a little pride bubbling up in him. He did still take him down, after all, underestimation or not. Don't get cocky. I wasn't taking you seriously there. That was my bad. I'll get you in the rematch though. Iruka gave a pained smile as he settled a hand on his chest. You good? Yeah, that stuff burns, but I'm alright. Glad you had the antidote. You're paying for that by the way, Naruto said, those things aren't cheap. Which one of us went using a poison? Which one of us tried to trick the other into nearly killing him? Naruto shot back with a smile. The pair looked up as they heard a ninja's voice call in the distance, the sound of sandals on tree limbs approaching them. Sounds like the reinforcements finally arrived. Naruto said. No, Iruka said as he sat up a little more. No, that's the sound of extra paperwork coming. Naruto was taken off guard as he registered what Kakashi just said. He wanted to use today to analyze Iruka's test with Kakashi, as that was the first real, or at least semi-real combat situation he'd been in since the wave. But it appeared his sensei had other ideas. I haven't fully mastered water walking yet. You sure you want to teach me a jutsu already? Naruto asked. They were stood in training ground 3, as it seemed Kakashi had taken to using their afternoons for training instead of missions since they got back from the wave. Just like before, Naruto was working with a clone. Yes, I'm sure. You've demonstrated dedication beyond what I asked for, Naruto. It shows me you're taking being a ninja seriously, not just for the sake of impressing others with cool jutsu. That's what I was looking for since you've become a genin. It shows a maturity a lot of others in your age range don't have. Naruto felt himself swell up with pride at Kakashi's praise. I don't get a lot of compliments, thanks sensei. Kakashi smiled at him. So, what do you got for me? I'm actually gonna teach you too. Kakashi said. Your plan is to become a mix between a ninjutsu specialist and a deception fighter, correct? These will help you get down that road. One of them will also help with your upcoming training. How so? It's a suitin ninjutsu. Like I said before, I can't help you with the particulars of what you'll be learning here soon, but I can help you with nature transformations, which will give you a good basis to start from. I thought about giving you a futin one as well, to make 3, but I didn't want to overwhelm you. Take it from someone who knows as many jutsu as I do, it's better to master the few you know, practice them, and take them to their limits, than to just get a jutsu down and move on to another. Right? Naruto said. Learning a jutsu wasn't just learning to do it. It was getting comfortable with it, testing it, knowing it like you would know a practiced kick. So what jutsu are they then? First, a gift and a lecture. Kakashi reached in his equipment pouch and produced 3 thin blue scrolls. These are water scrolls. Unroll them, throw them on the ground, make the sign for oxen hair, and then stomp on it. It will release a good amount of water for you to use for any suitin jutsu. If you want to refill them, stick an empty one in a lake or river, weave oxen hair again, and stomp on it again. He handed them over. Oh, wow, thanks sensei. Not a problem. That leads to our next topic of discussion, which is why I'm giving you these scrolls in the first place. Suitin and Doten jutsu are fundamentally different from the other 3 nature transformations. Can you guess how? Naruto thought for a moment. No, how? Most people that use Kaiten, Futin, and Raiten jutsu do so by creating the element out of chakra. Suitin and Doten are both different. The ability to create water with chakra is possible, but incredibly taxing on one's reserves and requires great chakra control. Creating small amounts that would be used in D or C rank techniques are possible for most ninja, but to create the amount of water needed for A rank techniques requires incredible mastery. The Nindaime and Sandaime are the only ninja in Konoha's history known to be able to power such high-level water techniques. What about for Doten? Doten takes even greater amounts of chakra and control to create than Suitin, enough that creating the earth needed for a small D or C rank jutsu takes incredible mastery. To do so with a B or A rank technique is nearly unheard of. Only a few ninja through history can claim to have done so, most of them from Iowa. Our Sandaime also can. But back on the topic of Suitin. Suitin and Doten are both unique in that most of their techniques use pre-existing elements to manipulate into jutsu, as in the surrounding water and earth, instead of creating the element. Does Futin not? There's air all around us. Ah, but you forget that Futon is wind style, not air style. Naruto gave him a skeptical look and Kakashi put his hands up in defense. There is a difference, and getting into that difference is getting into a lot of nature transformation theory and philosophy, but trust me. To answer your question, you can sort of pick up a gust of wind with your chakra and use it for jutsu. Soon as Futon users are notably dangerous in sandstorms for that reason. But whether or not the wind is about to blow on a normal day like today is unpredictable, and creating wind chakra is easy enough that most just go the route of forming it with chakra. You see, there's a trade-off in the elements. The easier an element is to make or find naturally, the easier it is to manipulate in its pre-existing condition, and the harder it is to form with chakra. The rarer it is in nature, the harder it is to manipulate in its pre-existing condition, but the easier it is to form with chakra. Earth lies on one end of the spectrum, lightning on the other. I think I get it, and I imagine being able to do either, forming Earth with chakra or manipulating existing bolts of lightning, often led to incredibly devastating effects, albeit at the cost of incredibly high amounts of chakra. Kakashi finished, so, I say all of that to say this. Don't waste your chakra trying to make water if you can help it. Use rivers and ponds when they are near first, those scrolls second, and creating water third. Yes, your reserves are incredible for your age. Use them wisely, and they become an even greater advantage. Got it? Don't waste my chakra if I don't need to. Alright, now the jutsus. I'm going to teach you Suiton. Kakasu no Jutsu, hiding in water technique. I believe you're familiar with it already. It's what the demon brothers used to hide in the puddle on the road to Nami no Kuni, a common jutsu in Kurigakure. It allows you to, in essence, melt into a body of water. I know it's not the most impressive on its own. I like it, Naruto said. He already had a couple of ideas in mind. If he had water around, he could basically make his clones disappear into the water while they were fighting an opponent and then ambush them when they didn't expect it. Or he could hinge them into weapons, then hide them, then have a weapon at the ready from the water. I'm glad. It will give you a good base to begin training in Suiton and will be an even more potent weapon when you expand your arsenal of Suiton jutsu. Can you guess the other reason I might be teaching you this? Naruto rubbed his chin and then it hit him, eyes widening. You think that's how Haku used his mirrors? SHH Kakashi held up a finger to his masked mouth, a little quieter, never know if someone is listening. But yes, likely not this exact jutsu, but something along those lines. Learning this may help you, if you so choose, to recreate that specific technique for the practice of experimenting with your abilities, if not to actually use it. Truth be told, Naruto sort of assumed Haku's ice mirrors were some clan technique he'd learned that would be way out of Naruto's league. But, if he was an orphan like he said, that couldn't be the case. Haku would have been developing his Hyoten on his own, just like Naruto. If Suiton Kakasu was a common jutsu to teach among Kiri ninja, it made sense that Haku would have been taught it by Zabuza or the demon brothers and then tried it with ice. Makes sense. I'll have to see if it works. What's the other technique? Your other one is another basic D-rank technique. Ninpu. And in no jutsu, as the name implies, it releases a large smoke cloud via one's chakra that allows for quick escapes, obscuring visuals, ambush tactics, and so on. They are typically more potent and longer lasting than standard smoke bombs, and as you have incredible reserves for your age, you can use it a lot more, since you can only carry so many smoke bombs. Makes sense. What are the hand signs? Horse, bird, horse. It's a rather simple technique, one that doesn't require much chakra control. Just focus your chakra in a ball within your network as you poof. Naruto spouted into a coughing fit as he was suddenly surrounded by billowing clouds of black smoke that nearly obscured the whole clearing. Note to self, if you're gonna hold your breath for concentration, don't immediately inhale afterwards if you're casting this jutsu. Despite that, he couldn't help but grin. This was about as dense as the mist Zabuza used, but even better since it was a dark color. He doubted it lasted nearly as long though. The gust of wind swept through the clearing, dissipating all the smoke, save some snaky tendrils of it still swirling on the ground here and there. His sensei was visible again, holding a ram hand sign. His teammates were visible on the other end of the clearing as well, each glaring daggers at Naruto. Next time, Kakashi said, wait for my signal. But, I count myself even more impressed than before, Naruto. Your chakra control has obviously grown leaps and bounds to be able to perform that jutsu on your first try. Thanks, sensei. Naruto said, grinning ear to ear. Let's go ahead and continue with Suishin. Kakasu. Don't expect to get it early as well, though. Nature transformation is a lot different from regular ninja techniques. Go ahead and break out one of those scrolls for me. Naruto smiled, plucking a water scroll from his equipment pouch and unraveling it before letting it drop. He performed the ox and hare signs before stomping on the scroll, a bevy of water splashing out as though he'd just popped a fire hydrant under his foot. Oh yes, he was going to have fun. I do not own Naruto. Ah, Naruto. Good, you came early. Naruto shut the door behind him. The sun hadn't quite risen yet, just on the edge of the horizon, resulting in faint blue light drifting in through the window. Konoha's yellow streetlight still on and spread below through the tower window. The Sandaime was facing out towards the village, head turned towards him, the light catching the side of his face. A small smile was spread across his lips. Next to him stood a doctor with a clipboard. "You wanted to see me, old man," Naruto said. Even with his morning sleepiness not having been completely shaken off, Naruto couldn't help but feel excited. He didn't quite know exactly what the Hokage would speak to him about, likely just drawing blood for his DNA test given the doctor, and maybe some plans moving forward. Still, he might finally set a date where he'd work on his bloodline, hopefully with a fresh Chunin jacket, given the exams would be occurring in a week's time. "Yes, indeed. I trust you've kept the secret of your Hyoten bloodline since last we spoke." "Yeah." Lip sealed on that one. "Good." The Sandaime said. "I'd like to take today to get you acquainted with your new instructor." "Instructor?" "Indeed. I've requested he meet us at 6:30. In the meantime, Date here," he gestured towards the doctor, "will be checking a few things for me." Sure," Naruto said. Date approached, clipboard in hand. "Good morning, Genin Uzumaki," he said. "How are you feeling today?" "Good, I guess." "Excellent." Date said, pulling a pen to write on his clipboard. "My name is Date, and for the foreseeable future, I will be your primary doctor. Things like chakra nature can come into play in the medical field," the Sandaime said, "and keeping your chakra nature in your medical files is a bit too risky. So, should you be injured or in need of care and come to Konoha's hospital, Date here will be the one taking care of you." "Alright," Naruto said. His own private doctor. Didn't expect that. The last records Konoha's hospital had of you were when you were 6, from your mandatory checkup upon your entrance to the academy. So, I imagine these file records of your height and weight are quite inaccurate. Do you happen to know them off the top of your head?" "I weighed myself 2 weeks ago and I was 88 pounds, but I've done more training and changed my diet since then. I don't know my height. We'll say 88 for now. And for height, you seem 4'7". Somewhere in that range. We'll have to get the exact numbers when you next come in. Blood type B and your elemental affinities are Suiton, Futon, and Hyoten, correct?" "Yes." "Okay," he said, scribbling something into his paper. "That further disproves that myth?" Naruto asked. "There's some old records of dubious legitimacy that claim the first Hokage's wife, who was also the first Kyuubi Jinchuriki, developed a fire nature after the sealing. It became a myth afterwards that the Kyuubi gave its host a fire nature. It has been disproved since, by you most recently. Now, speaking of your tenant, do you ever feel unexplained or uncontrollable bursts of aggression, anger, or malice?" No. You sound unsure." "Well, I mean, I've been angry before. Have you ever felt bursts of strength and speed during this time? Burning sensations in your chakra coils?" "Burn what?" "No. I mean, I feel strong when I'm angry, but that's just what anger does. The added adrenaline and all that." "He means," the Sandaime spoke up to a strangely higher degree. "Can you, or do you feel as if you can, perform feats far beyond your typical speed and strength, as though suddenly jumping from Genin to Chunin level, or Chunin to Jonin?" "No, nothing that big." "Should I?" "Oftentimes, a Jinchuriki host is able to draw on their tenant's chakra in times of emotional distress," Date said, "most often in times of extreme anger or frustration. The symptoms mentioned are often byproducts of this chakra. This is normal for a Jinchuriki. However, you haven't felt any of those sensations come upon you, with or without something to trigger the anger?" "No, nothing," Naruto said, absorbing the information. He'd always just assumed that the Kyuubi was, well, in the stands, but not on the court, so to say. Now he was learning he could go into sudden uncontrollable rages because of the it. "I'd not be concerned," Naruto the Hokage said, seeming to sense his anxiety. "Your seal was created by the Yondaime himself, who was one of, if not the greatest Fuinjutsu master to have ever lived. If you've never felt any of those things, even when angry, it is testament to his skill." "Yeah, got it, old man," Naruto said, a little unnerved. He was startled by a knock on the door. "Enter," the Sandaime said. Naruto turned, as in walked Ibisu, prim and proper as ever. He expected the Sandaime to ask him to wait for whatever he was visiting for, but instead, he nodded at him. "Ibisu, good, 6:30 on the dot. As punctual as ever. I believe Date was finishing with young Naruto here, if you could wait a moment." "Of course, Lord Hokage," Ibisu said, moving to the side of the room. "Alright," Naruto Date said, "I'll just need a blood sample, and that will be all for today." Naruto nodded, as the man poured a bit of alcohol on a cloth, dabbed it on Naruto's arm, produced a needle, and drew some blood. Naruto winced, keeping his eye off his arm. He didn't much like needles. Date drew his needle out, placing a small bandage on the spot with a little toad on it that Naruto thought far too childish for a ninja. "Thank you very much, Naruto," Lord Hokage Date said, bowing. "Thank you, Date. You may return to the hospital," the Sandaime said. Date did so, closing the door behind him. Now Naruto, I believe you are familiar with Ibisu already. Yeah, we've met. Is he going to be my instructor? Naruto asked, a little surprised. Indeed. I approached him with the topic the day after our and Team 7's talk, proposing that he tutor you as an extended A-ranked mission. He has agreed to help develop your bloodline. So has he trained others with bloodlines before? Not ones concerning nature transformations, but I have indeed helped many the Hyuga clan deemed hopeless cases, as well as others in their specific clan jutsu. Ibisu said. I don't believe any in the village are experts in developing a virtually unknown bloodline, the Sandaime continued. However, Ibisu here is a Takebetsu Jonin with specific skills in mentoring and ninja development. In fact, to merely put them as skills is understating the matter. Ibisu is an innate prodigy in regards to spotting the strengths and weaknesses hidden within a shinobi or kunoichi and developing them into incredible assets to our village. Really? Naruto asked. He knew the Takebetsu Jonin were often top of their class in one specific area, but he hadn't known Ibisu's specialization. Indeed. His ability to pull attributes of a ninja out of their skill set and create styles and methods of fighting unique to them is unparalleled in the village. We owe many of our best Chunin and Jonin to him, and I trust no other more than him with the difficult task of building a bloodline from the ground up. Ah, your praise embarrasses and humbles me, Lord Hokage. Ibisu said, with a smile that didn't look at all embarrassed or humbled. Naruto looked the man up and down. It made sense that if the Hokage wanted someone train his own grandson, he would get the absolute best of the best in regards to teachers. Then I look forward to working with you, Ibisu-sensei, Naruto said. And I you, Naruto. Ibisu returned with polite formality. You will both write reports with weekly upon your progress, the Sandaime said. Though Ibisu will be building your bloodline in a way to complement your skill set, these reports will not be in regard to your skills. Those are still the responsibility of yourself and your Jonin sensei. Instead, the reports will be specifically upon your bloodline. You will meet 3 times a week to train. As today's session is towards the end of the week, you may include it in the report for next week. Today's session? Naruto asked. Of course. If you have not scheduled anything. The Sandaime replied. No. A grin broke onto Naruto's face, just didn't expect to be able to start so soon. He did have his daily schedule, but that could definitely be put on hold. Excellent. The Sandaime said, I understand you have entered into the Chunin exams. If you qualify for the finals, you may prepare in whatever manner you see fit in the month between. However, I must still ask for 3 sessions a week with Ibisu in regards to your bloodline, even if you may not use it in the exam itself. The exams last a whole month. Naruto asked. I thought it was just a day. The No-Has Chunin exams have a series of preliminary events that can last anywhere from 1 to 7 days, depending on the number of the attendants. Ibisu explained, for those who pass these events, they receive a month of free time, with no missions, to prepare for the finals, and then a finalist event. During that month, should you qualify, your time with Ibisu will continue, even if the skills you foster with him will not contribute to your performance. The Sandaime said. I do apologize for the inconvenience, but the development of your bloodline for the sake of the village must take precedence. Why? Naruto asked. I mean, I'll do as you ask, but just out of curiosity, what's the problem with postponing it for a bit? The Sandaime closed his eyes, puffing his pipe a bit before answering. I am afraid I cannot fully answer that question just yet, Naruto. I must simply say that your development as a ninja in the long run must be considered first to face threats that we believe may come, even if it slows you in the short run. I realize this must make you frustrated, and it did frustrate Naruto, but, after taking a deep breath, I am your shinobi, Lord Hokage, Naruto said. I'm at your command in all situations. Still, Naruto couldn't help but wonder what threats the Hokage had in mind. The only thing he could think of would be Kiri if they went public about his bloodline. Was that the old man's plan? To go public when Naruto had enough skill to protect himself from the possibility of assassination. Regardless, Naruto wasn't too off-put. The most important thing was that he was ready to survive in the ninja world, and his bloodline was only going to help, even if it didn't in the Chunin exams. Thank you for understanding, Naruto. Now, I believe you are eager to get started. Naruto nodded, smiling, bouncing a little on the balls of his feet. Then Ibisu will take you here to training grounds 51. Oh, I forgot, I don't really know where that is. I thought Konoha only had 50. Ah, yes, I'd almost forgotten to inform you. The Sandaime said, your training will not be taking place on one of our usual training grounds. With almost all of them out in the open and vulnerable to spies, I've decided that you will be training in an underground location. So where is it? About half a mile under Anbu's headquarters. Anbu's headquarters? Wouldn't putting a training ground under them possibly compromise there? And then it clicked, Naruto's eyes opening wide in response. It seems as though you've caught on. The Hokage asked with a smile. You're letting me use Anbu's training grounds? Naruto felt awkward. He knew he might be getting some special treatment with his new bloodline, but to be handed the best teacher in the village and a personal doctor and to be able to train in the training grounds of the most elite shinobi in the village. Naruto felt like he hadn't earned it, like he was out of place. Indeed. As the location is a secret, I'd ask you not mention its existence to other shinobi. Our operatives have been briefed on the circumstances of your training. You will be doing your training there for the reason of secrecy, but another as well. One of our Anbu operatives in the village has a nature transformation Kekkei Genkai. I thought Konoha didn't have any clans with a nature transformation. We do not. This is the Mokuton Kekkei Genkai. Unlike other nature transformations, Mokuton does not appear to pass down through its descendants, otherwise it would have appeared in the descendants of our Shadame Hokage. Through a series of events above either of your pay grades, one of our Anbu obtained the ability, and as he is the only one with experience in using a nature transformation Kekkei Genkai, he will be helping you in the process of combining your chakra natures. What's his name? Naruto asked, before wincing. Oh, that's probably classified, isn't it? For now, you may call him Tenzo. He is currently on mission, and so will not be able to help you today. He is expected back within 2 weeks. As he is an active duty Anbu operative, the times he is available to help you will be limited. However, as both of your transformations are fundamentally different, he will not be needed in the areas of your training, beyond helping you in the most basic aspect of Kekkei Genkai, which is to combine chakra natures. Tenzo, so wait, if I need him to even start with combining my chakra nature, what will we be doing today? I had planned on helping you with accessing the natures that make up your Hyoten bloodline, Ibisu said, as you will likely need familiarity with both of them before you can work on combining them. Any more questions, Naruto? The Sandame asked. Naruto shook his head, then, I wish you the best of luck. Naruto was very conscious of the masked gazes that followed him as he entered training grounds 51. He kept his head down and followed Ibisu, who somehow exuded all of the confidence and I'm allowed to be here-ness that Naruto lacked. He looked over at a cat-masked Kunoichi with her sword out, who had paused mid-sequence upon Naruto's entrance. Her gaze shifted slightly to Naruto's bicep, just as he remembered the dumb-toed bandage there. He suddenly felt quite aware of its presence. Naruto and Ibisu took up a spot near the back wall. The room was the size of 4 large gymnasiums, a long line of weapon racks on the side wall, training dummies on the other. Along the back wall where Naruto and Ibisu were situated was a large in-ground trough, almost a small canal. Spouts on the wall cycled water through it. The Anbu in the room slowly fell back into their activities, the room slowly filling with the noise of training again. You seem a bit tense, Naruto. Ibisu said, go ahead and begin stretching. Naruto did so. Yeah, I don't think I've felt so out of place before. Naruto replied, keeping his voice low. The environment he was in seemed to do that to him. That is natural. I remember attending my first Jonin meeting and feeling quite similar. Just remember that you are here on orders of the Hokage and so deserve to be here just as much as they. And that all the people surrounding you, though outranking you, are your peers and fellow shinobi. Right, Naruto said, having a hard time classifying groups of Anbu as peers. The Hokage said you were eager to train me. Why's that? To be honest, Ibisu said, most of my desire is self-motivated. Helping to develop the systems and secret techniques of a future clan of Konoha, one that is likely to be quite prevalent given that it will have a bloodline, will be my greatest challenge and the height of my career. Ah. Naruto said. It made sense from a career perspective. But, I also must admit you impressed me in our last meeting and your change of attitude towards being a shinobi. I see great potential in you, saw it even in our first encounter, and I'd like to see how far that potential can go. That's good, Naruto said, lots of potential means I'm less likely to die in the long run. He finished up his stretches, turning back to his sensei. Now, I understand that on your mission to Nami no Kuni, you coincidentally encountered a shinobi capable of using Hyoten. I read the report, but it did not mention the play-by-play of the fight. Do you remember any of his jutsu or details of his use of these techniques? Ibisu said, producing a sheet of paper and writing a few notes down. I arrived late to the fight and only ever saw him use one technique, Naruto said. He surrounded his opponent in a dome of mirrors made of ice. A dome of mirrors? Yeah. He could sort of melt into them. Kakashi-sensei's theory is that it was a modified version of the Kakusu technique, which he's been having me work on. But he would melt into them, and they were all angled so that all the mirrors showed his reflection. You never knew which mirror he was really in. From there, he traveled from mirror to mirror at high speeds, throwing senbon. Even when he was out for the split second between mirrors, it was like catching someone as a funhouse mirror maze. There were so many reflections that it disoriented you from seeing the real one. And only Sasuke was able to do so after awakening his Sharingan. Yeah. But even though he could see him, we still couldn't get out. Sasuke couldn't melt the mirrors with his fireball jutsu either. He couldn't? Ibisu asked, writing the detail down. No. Tried a few times too. I see. And this is the only technique you saw? Ibisu said. Yeah. It is good information, but that is precious little to go off of. I was hoping for some hints or directions to go. But, I suppose that just makes the challenge even greater. Ibisu adjusted his glasses with a smile. If you get the opportunity, could you ask your teammates and sensei if he'd used any other techniques? Sure thing. I guess I should mention that when the villagers of Nami no Kuni raided Gato's hideout, they found Haku's, the Hyoten shinobi's, items. They gave me all his scrolls. Been using them to improve myself bit by bit. If you'd like, I can let you have a look so you can get an idea of what kind of a shinobi he was and how that could have paired with his Hyoten. Thank you, I think I will have you do just that. Now, as Lord Hokage stated, our training will not be addressing many of the main facets of being a ninja. Our one and only goal is to develop your skill in Hyoten and create a suite of jutsu and techniques for future clan members to use. However, given that we are dealing with chakra nature, you will find that other areas you may wish to develop, such as ninjutsu expertise and especially chakra control, will be involved. I am told by Kakashi that you are currently working on the water walking exercise. Finished it? Naruto said. He'd done so on Wednesday. If you could demonstrate for me? Ibisu asked, gesturing to the trough of water beside them. Naruto stepped on a little carefully. Even though he could do it, he hadn't done it in regular clothing yet and feared somehow getting wet. But, to his surprise, it was quite easier than the river in Training Ground 3, given that it was entirely still. Acceptable. Your chakra control will be one of the most important foundations to our work, so I'd like you to continue practicing. Training Ground 17 houses a small waterfall. Get to the point that you can spar upon it with a clone. By that point, your chakra control should be around mid to high chunin level, which will be adequate for our purposes. Will do. Naruto said. Thank you. Now, you mentioned Kakashi has you working on the Kakasu technique. Are you able to perform it? Not yet. I started on it a few days back and I got close once, but it's pretty difficult. That's alright. Many with chakra natures can learn the most basic of elemental techniques with no nature training. Those that do often have an easier time when such nature training comes. But, that is what we will be working on today, nature training for your Suiton affinity. You can train your affinity? Yes. I have not yet trained one in Futon nature, as the style is so rare in Konoha, but that will only take a bit of research on my part. Added to that, we do not need you at the level of mastery in your base transformations, which for Suiton training would be to reverse the course of a river, and for Futon would be to cut a waterfall in half. Naruto was rather thankful that he didn't have to do either task. We only need you adept enough to access both transformations, so we can begin to mix them, which the starting exercises will qualify you for. Alright, Naruto said, what do I need to do? Your first exercise will be a simple one. First, sit in front of the trough and place your hand upon the water. Then, you will simply need to draw up a ball of water into the air with your chakra. Wait, so, do I draw it up with my hand? Naruto asked. That seemed difficult. No, keep your hand on the water at all times. You will levitate it into the air. Ibisu said. Naruto cringed a bit. That seemed much harder, but then again, he remembered the water dragon that Kakashi and Zabuza had made. If he couldn't lift water, then he doubted he'd be able to do that. Naruto looked over his shoulder. Even though not a single Anbu was looking at him, he couldn't help but feel that when he turned his back, all their eyes would be on him. Alright. Naruto said, sitting cross-legged in front of the water, closing his eyes and putting his hand down on the surface. Let your chakra melt into the water, mix with it, let it become flowing and turbulent like water is. Do not let it spread, you desire control. Keep it in a ball. Then, draw it up. Naruto breathed in his nose and out his mouth, concentrating. His chakra slowly seeped down into the water. He began to sweat, holding his breath, feeling the water trying to spread his chakra out, having to try his hardest to keep it all in a contained ball. But just as he was about to try raising it, the image of all the Anbu watching him came back in his mind, and the ball popped like a fragile bubble, his chakra turning into a cloud in the water. Breathe. Ibisu said. Naruto complied, letting his chakra back in. Your chakra must be relaxed. Flowing. Not stiff and tense. Naruto relaxed, letting his chakra swirl up into a ball, shoving all the Anbu's faceless gazes out of his mind. I think I got it, Naruto said. When you are ready, draw it up. Naruto pushed as hard as he could, eyes clenched, teeth showing. A few seconds passed before a little ripple appeared at the top of the trough. Naruto dropped it, muscles unwinding as he did so, taking in a deep breath like he dropped an enormous weight. A decent first attempt, Ibisu said. But you must relax. Again. Naruto sighed, closing his eyes. Again, Naruto grabbed his sensei's arm and then swept forward with his kunai. His sensei caught his wrist as he did so. Having expected this, Naruto swung the elbow of his trapped arm over Kakashi's bicep, making sure to turn his hips and shoulder into the strike. Kakashi leaned away from the strike as it sailed past his nose and let go of Naruto's wrist. Naruto fell back into stance. Good. Counter elbows are the typical response to a wrist lock like that. It needs to be immediate though, otherwise they can manipulate you into a compromising position, such as when I trapped your arm behind you at the start of the bell test. Since the Chunin exams are tomorrow, I don't recommend using it during them, since you haven't had much practice with it. Right, Naruto said. You seem a bit distracted, Naruto. Exam nerves. Huh? Naruto looked up. Oh, no, I was thinking about something else. And what's that? Nothing too major. I started with my, training yesterday, and I know it's dumb and immature, but I couldn't help but feel embarrassed. I what? Did you not perform as well as you thought you would? Well, no, but it was more because Lem back up. I don't know if I'm allowed to just say where we're training, but we're doing our training around Samanbu. The elite of the village, huh? Yeah. I was sort of on their turf, and I felt the whole time like I was intruding or something. I know most of it was just that I was an uninvited kid in their territory, but I kept thinking of you and Zabuza, how you were both on a whole other level than me. I know it's dumb, but I felt like they looked at me the same way Zabuza did, like some kid who doesn't know what he's doing or what he's in for. I imagine it must have felt like they looked at you like your old self when you first walked into training ground 51. Exactly. And it doesn't much matter if other people look at me like that, it just matters what I actually am, But having that feeling put on me again was kinda offsetting, and I don't know, it bugs me that it bugs me so much. I don't wanna care how they think of me. That's understandable. What matters is what you do, not what others think you do. Yeah, wait. How do you know about training grounds 51? I didn't mention it, did I? You didn't. Kakashi said, arm drifting to his sleeve. But only other Anbu know, and the realization hit Naruto just as Kakashi lifted his sleeve, showing the tattoo on his arm. Oh, Naruto said. Been retired for a few years now, but I was a part of the Anbu for the longest time. Came in when I was just about your age. Naruto blinked. His age. Did he hear that right? Just how good was his sensei? My age? Naruto asked. Yep. His sensei said with an aloof smile. Somehow, that smile contrasted with the fact he'd just learned about his sensei. How could an Anbu be so lazy? Teasing. Aloof. Human. You don't seem like you fit the mold, Naruto said. Well, that certainly hurts a little. No, I just mean you're not some emotionless person or something. Nobody in Anbu is. Naruto stared in confusion at his sensei. The Anbu masks do a great job at what they're designed to do, cover what's underneath, and make you think you're looking at a soulless killing machine. I was in Anbu for 8 years, so trust me when I say that each and every one of my colleagues is a human. Each one has a personality under their mask. Each one laughs at jokes, feels happy, has down days, and cries when their friends die. None of them are people's ideas of them. I felt much the same way you did when I first walked into training grounds 51. At the time, I was the youngest Anbu in Konoha's history. Record's been beaten since then. But regardless, I saw the same thing you did, something bigger and stronger than me. And they saw me like they see you, some kid intruding on their territory. I wanted their respect, to be one of them. But, as I'm sure you know, shouting at everyone to respect you doesn't garner much respect. Instead, I simply did as you said, I continued being the person they thought I wasn't. Eventually, how they viewed me matched the reality of who I was. You've not had the best life. You've gotten a lot of judgment for something you couldn't control, and so you, quite naturally, crave that attention. The point I'm making is that you spent a lot of time focusing on what this village thinks of you, Naruto. Don't get too caught up because that instinct is still in your brain. It'll pass. In the meantime, follow what you know. Be the person you are, and they will change their views with time. The ones who don't are just gonna be living in a fantasy. Naruto looked up to his sensei, one of the first people to believe he was more than what the village said he was. Thanks, sensei. For everything, Naruto said, smiling. You're more than welcome, Naruto. Kakashi smiled back. Naruto didn't know what it felt like to have a proud parent, but he thought it must have felt something like this. So does getting the tattoo hurt? His sensei let out a rare chuckle. Not one of his fake ones, or the ones he used to indulge someone, but a real one Naruto had only heard a handful of times. Yeah. It's a jutsu seal as well, and those almost always hurt. What's it do? Classified, Naruto. Oh, come on. Naruto said, feeling a little like Konohamaru. Tell you what, you get in the Anbu, and then you can find out what they do. Kakashi said, motioning him over for their team's last teamwork exercise before the exams. Naruto followed, smiling. He might just have to take his sensei up on the offer. Oh, who was he kidding? He probably wasn't Anbu material. What if Naruto hides his bloodline Sasuke bashing? Thanks for watching my video till the end. If you enjoy this content, then do consider subscribing to my channel and leave a like if you guys need the next part, comment down, and thanks for watching the video and see you guys in the next video.